member. So.
Good morning. I'd like to call the Legacy Finance Committee meeting to order. I see that we have a quorum. Representative Finke, have you had an opportunity to take a peek at the minutes for the March 15th meeting? And if so, would you be willing to move them?
Thoroughly reviewed them. I move. So moved.
Thank you, Representative Finke. Any questions regards to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Minutes have been approved. Thank you, Representative Finke. And so we, just a little heads up, we're going to be moving through quite a few bills today, and I'm not going to be moving them per se, so we're just going to be kind of going into the bills and having discussions today just for the ease of movement of the agenda, because all these bills are going to be essentially laid over for possible inclusion anyways, so it just makes sense time-wise just to go ahead. So Lead Backer, welcome to your committee, and go ahead when you're ready, sir, and
Sure.
tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members here. Fergus Falls, we are requesting $700,000 in fiscal year 2024 for a park and trail that goes right into the heart of Fergus Falls. It's a project that Fergus has been working on for many years. You kind of can see, if you have your hand out here, we got this a little later, but it's black and white at least. But this picture here really shows what they've done to make the downtown, which was really an eyesore. And this is right on the Otter Tail River. Unfortunately, the mayor was intending to be here, but because of the weather we have on west central Minnesota, he late last night decided to not venture down, and rightfully so, the roads are quite icy. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Joe Carlson, who is speaking on behalf of the mayor and so forth. So go ahead there.
Thank you, Representative Backer. Good morning, Mr. Carlson. Go ahead when you're ready, sir. Please
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Lilly and members. I'm Joel Carlson, and I've had the pleasure of representing the city of Fergus Falls since about 2002, and we've had a number of exciting projects in the city during that time. You mentioned one this morning. We have the Kirkbride facility, which is an unbelievable historic site. It's the largest footprint of a building for any site that is west of the Pentagon. But what we're here to talk about today is our downtown redevelopment. The city has been long working to re-envision the river. And part of that project is to connect our trails that go through our downtown. And this is one segment of that trail, and this $700,000 is for the trail construction. We are the dairy site that is adjacent to downtown has about a mile of river frontage. And the Port Authority in Fergus Falls has purchased that site, has done the remediation, and the city, to conserve the buffer or to conserve the riverbank, is purchasing the river shore, and that's where this park and trail will go, in the trail connection. The mayor sends his greetings. He apologizes for not being here. I'm a poor replacement. He's young and hip and a full set of hair. But Mr. Chairman, the real reason, though, is that in all my years here, this is the first time I've had a chance to appear before you. And so it's an honor to be here in front of you in this capacity. So happy to answer questions. I know you're going to move through a number of bills today.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Any questions in regards to this project? Representative Hurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Baker, just a quick question. Has this particular park or trail have received direct appropriations in the past? And if so, how much?
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Carlson. Good question.
Mr. Carlson.
Mr. Chair and Representative Hurt, for this segment, we have not. We had some money committed through the LCCMR process for this project, but we were unable to reach an agreement with the DNR, and so that funding returned back to the corpus of the LCCMR. And so when we met with our legislative delegation at the beginning of the session, and we were looking to try and replace that funding. That is the genesis of the bill in front of you today.
Representative Hart. That's good. Chair Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Carlson, Representative Becker, how does this tie into the appropriations in 2020 for the bonding request for the downtown area?
Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Chair Lee. This is phase 2 of the Riverfront project that you have toured, and we received some money in 2020 for that project. So this is the bonding request that is in front of you this year is phase 2 of this project, and that includes a component of this as well. But we have not received funding for this part of the project. They went through and completed phase 2 with local resources, and so as you know, the bill didn't get funded last year, so they completed that part 2 phase 1, and now this is part of part 2 phase 2.
Chair Lee.
Last follow-up. So, Mr. Carlson, could you just make it clear? So, is this going to be coming towards for bonding funding too, or is this only for legacy?
Mr. Carlson.
The trail construction we're seeking legacy funding for. We are not seeking bonding funding for that.
Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To either of you, I'm very familiar with trails, and Representative Chair Lee has, there's money everywhere, and you have phases. Generally, I'm a big supporter of trails, so you have an ally, that sort of thing. I think that's why we live in Minnesota, because we have such great trails, and the legislature should be proud of that. I walk on one in St. Paul here. It's phenomenal. So the question I have is, where is phase 3, 4, 5, 6, or where is this go to? What is the ultimate goal here? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Carlson.
Well, one of the great things about trails is they can always be connected to something new, but this trail will connect the 2 downtowns into the central trail, and I want to make sure I get the right name of it, but there's a trail to the north that this connects to. So this is a connector that will make it seamless through the downtown area and connect the trails on each side of the downtown.
Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the link. This is the part that connects everything, and it's kind of integral. And last year's bonding, everything's out of whack for you guys right now. Is that fair to say?
Well,
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson.
Mr. Chair and members, I would never say the legislature's out of whack, but
No.
But yeah, we've had fits and starts with our projects as a result of funding flows, but that's not unique to Fergus Falls. You've had a lot of communities that have encountered that situation, so that's not unique to us.
Representative Scraba.
Yeah, just to clarify, the out of whack part is the funding,
Right.
the way it works. I understand
Correct.
that. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm done.
Representative Becker, have you been in consultation with the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Council for this project?
Yes, we had a meeting yesterday. Yep.
So, Representative Becker, are you one of their projects, or is this outside that scope?
This, thank you for asking it. This is outside of scope. This is a separate request. What I understand, because I'm I'm the new kid on the block, okay, for Fergus, learning really quickly with Mr. Carlson's help. I understood that there was 2 requests in front of them that have been, was not approved, and there was some hiccups. So working with our current senator and others, it just seemed to make sense to go a direct appropriation, because sometimes there are, not saying that group doesn't do a great job, it does, but there are some times that you have to do an option like in football instead of run down the center.
Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair.
Just curious, what are you eating for breakfast, sir?
Jalapeno chips.
I
man.
didn't.
Is that healthy?
I did not see that coming.
Got to spice it up. 3 hours of hearing today.
Representative Cha.
To maybe Representative Backer or the testifier, I've never been to Fergus Falls, so can you give us some insight on some details of Fergus Falls?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson or Ms.
I'll start.
Representative Backer.
Yeah, Fergus Falls is really a regional hub for that neck of, not just for Otter Tail County, but for Grant, Wilkin, Wadena, and I mean for us, it's roughly about 18,000 people, so relatively small, but for our neck of the woods, a larger community, and they have always been quite aggressive in a positive sense on being that regional hub. And so when the first time I actually had a meeting this summer in the area, the picture down here to the second, so I got to view that firsthand. I've been by it many times, but it was a Sunday afternoon, met with two constituents with some various concerns. We met right into that in the building there. It's a really nice area. Fergus Falls has always done a lot of things for arts and culture, historical society, which when you get into a more greater Minnesota aspect, you don't have the necessarily human power, because everybody's wearing many hats. So when you get into a regional center like that, it's nice to have that. And that's what I would comment about Fergus, and then you can follow up there, Mr. Carlson.
Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. Representative Cha, happy to have a brief commercial for the city. It's about 13,000 people. We're about 50 miles inside from the North Dakota-Minnesota border. It is a regional hub, and they have a very progressive attitude about getting public projects done. About 10 years ago, we went through a retail slump. We lost Herberger's, we lost Target, and they have embarked on a very significant project to revitalize their downtown, both with housing, mixed use, commercial, and retail, and so the city itself has done everything they can to try and retain and attract their residents. They have a thriving ethanol plant in the community, and they're always looking to attract new business, and it's a historic city. We just finished our 150th anniversary this summer, which we celebrated. Representative Lilly in the pavilion that your and Chair Lee's funding helped us provide, and it is the site of a historic structure, the Kirkbride Center, which was a regional treatment center that was built in 1890 and at one time housed 3,000 patients and had about 2,500 workers. And the Kirkbride concept is that people with disabilities can live in one community together. And they had their own farm, their own nursing station. It's quite a unique part of our history. Over time, we found out that being community-based and integrated into the community was a better treatment model. But at one time, that facility, that Kirkbride facility, housed residents well into the late 80s and early 90s from all across the state. It is really a unique structure. It's got over 1 million square feet, and we're trying to redevelop that as well into some type of historic purpose. So thank you for giving us a chance to talk a little bit about the town.
Chair Hurd.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. And I don't know if this question is for our testifiers or maybe for staff, but as I was looking back at some of our old notes here, I saw that in the Outdoor Heritage Fund, Parks and Trails, 14.25%. I'm just curious, the funding that goes into that, is it usually competitive grants that are, it is not? Okay, so does any of that funding go to projects like this?
So in the category of historically the Parks and Trails area, we've divided up. So 40% is going to the Metro and 40% is going to the DNR, and the remaining percentage is going, 20% is going to Greater Minnesota, and then they have a system in which they vet projects, and then they pick projects, and so it's kind of, they work through the list of projects, and of course, like every part of our fund, we'll find people, there's demand for a lot more money. And
Yeah.
this might be the case here, or they're, I mean, for many reasons, people are, they're eager to get projects completed, so.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. And so then maybe to the testifiers, I guess what I'm trying to understand, because I'm a process person, and then I'm new to Legacy as well. I'm the new kid, even though I've been here for a while. I just want to understand then why this project isn't asking to be part of the competitive grant process for whatever pools we have available versus asking for a direct appropriation. I understand from the committee that it's something that we have done, and we do direct appropriate at times, but generally requests go through a competitive grant process. So I just want to understand why this project should be different than going through the competitive grant process.
Mr. Carlson?
Mr. Chair and Representative Herr, we're not a special snowflake. We did apply twice to the Greater Minnesota Fund and were denied. And when our legislative delegation said they'd introduce a bill to do it, we were certainly happy to put our shoulder behind that effort. But we did try to go through that process. But for stubbing our toe on the LCCMR process and having that funding gap that developed in June of this past year, we might not be here. But now we have this gap and we're trying to fill it.
Well, thank you for coming forward. Having served on Chair Lee's committee a couple terms, I've been able to go through Fergus, I think, 2, maybe 3 times. Beautiful community, and I agree with what was said. There's a lot of nice things happening there, and certainly a trail would be a nice addition. Lead Backer, final comments, please, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And in my opinion, this is what 14, 15 years ago when this sales tax was set aside for this. This is what people envisioned, trails and other things with clean water. But on this aspect, this fits right into what Legacy should be doing. So thanks for your time and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Carlson.
Chair.
Thank you. Representative Huot. And we're off to a good start. We're only a little bit behind already. I'm sure Chair Lee will appreciate that. I don't know if you've seen, he has a few bills on his afternoon agenda as well. I might have to do the buzzer system like he does. Representative Hewitt, good morning. Amazing sweater. Is that for us?
Good morning, Chair Lilly, is it? Thank you.
Wow, ouch. Next on the agenda.
I'm still having trouble with my bracket.
Calls.
I'm sorry. Good morning, Chair Lilly and Legacy Committee. Thank you for having me. This is a great bill to have on such a great day. History definitely matters. It matters to me, as you can see. I'm celebrating my history, but we're all a part of history. If you like it or not, as a legislator, you have now become part of the Minnesota history. One of the things that I loved is, not really loved because the legislators, my colleagues that were there during the pandemic, legislated through that mess. And one of the things that kept me balanced is was able to go back to history books of the 1918 pandemic. And the same arguments that we held between us and things like that happened back then to the same legislators. So it's kind of neat to make sure that we document our history because it matters, good, bad, or ugly. We need to have it. So today we're going to talk about House File 2566. This file basically, as we look back at the Legacy Amendment itself, Minnesota Constitution, one of the purposes is to preserve Minnesota history, recognizing the important role as history plays in our state's civic and cultural life. In our education system, our young learners, lifelong learners, such as those exploring family history, and who also enjoys visiting historical places. You'll see the buttons. You want one? I'm sure these gentlemen will help you with it. That say history matters, and believe me, it does. With me today, I have our two esteemed gentlemen from the History Center, or from the Historical Society. I keep calling it the center. I know it's a society. So they are here to testify on the bill. Chair Lilly, if they could go ahead and do such.
Thank you. What was your name again? No, Representative Hewitt. Thank you, President.
Exactly.
Director Whitworth. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. My name is Kent Whitworth. I serve as the Director and CEO of the Minnesota Historical Society. And thank you, Representative Hewitt, for bringing this bill before the committee. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we appreciate the opportunity to discuss history projects this morning. A very appropriate time to do so, as Representative Hewitt pointed out. We'd like to cover a few things that we did not have a chance to address when we were before the committee doing an overview just a few weeks ago. You have a copy of our annual Legacy History Report, which covers our legacy expenditures for fiscal year 22, including a listing of all the grants made in that same time frame. The last time we were before the committee, we covered the structure of the history legacy appropriations. And it's just a very quick reminder, the structure for funding in previous years is outlined, I believe, on one of the early pages. I think it was slipped in as to your legacy report, and David's got a copy there of the 4 or 5 buckets, if you will, of funding. At our last hearing, we did distribute Making Minnesota, our legacy activity book for kids, but we really didn't have a chance to describe this amazing project. This book is geared towards 4th and 5th grade age groups, and it contains activities that reflect Minnesota's history, parks and trails, clean water, and habitat, all the things that make legacy activities so important. This book is free, and we are now in our 3rd printing of Making Minnesota. We've distributed more than 50,000 copies to date. Our author and artist, Pat Bauer and Dave Geister, are very talented teachers, and they have hit the road and will continue to do so. They've done a teacher training program at the History Center. They have visited Library Day at the Capitol, and they have a very aggressive schedule of visiting libraries and historic sites and hopefully parks over the spring and summer. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, we appreciate your support of this project and other history projects as well. There are so many great initiatives that have been accomplished through legacy funds, and we'd like to highlight just a few recent projects. Very, very recently, we had a chance to discuss with Representative Bakker a project in his area to preserve the Carnegie Library in Browns Valley. And the project manager was kind enough to send a thank you letter to us. An excerpt from that letter reads, "Words cannot express how thankful we are for the opportunity to work towards restoration of this beautiful and important building in our town. Here in the Metro, Legacy Funds have produced an interactive online guide to a walking tour of LGBTQ plus history in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we will actually have a photo exhibit this fall in the lobby of the Minnesota Historical Society's Mill City Museum, which documents the locations of that walking tour." And the third project I'd like to highlight is a project that is just a few miles away from here on Marshall Avenue here in St. Paul. It's a great example of a community documenting its history and preserving a historic place. Thompson Hall Thompson Hall in St. Paul has been an important social gathering place for Minnesota's deaf community for more than 100 years. With the help of Legacy Funds, Thompson Hall has been doing planning to preserve its National Register of Historic Places building to try to make that space more accessible. And we were pleased to feature Thompson Hall in the most recent issue of Minnesota History Magazine. There are literally thousands of important projects that have been funded by history legacy dollars. Communities preserving their own history and sharing with others so that all of us can learn more about our past. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, David Kelleher, Director of Public Policy and Governmental Relations at the Minnesota Historical Society, to describe the budget request contained in the bill.
Thank you, Director Whitworth. Director Kelleher, go ahead when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm David Kelleher, Minnesota Historical Society. Mr. Chair, I'd like to spend a few minutes on budget numbers contained in this bill. At our last hearing, we mentioned the Minnesota History Coalition, an organization of organizations who do the history work across the state. The History Coalition is requesting 33% of the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund to reflect the language of the Minnesota Constitution, the Legacy Amendment, which is to preserve Minnesota's history. This request from the History Coalition is reflected in this bill: funding for history grants, statewide history programs, history partnerships, statewide and archaeological and historic surveys, and the Minnesota Digital Library. There's tremendous demand for grants, typically 2 times the dollars available, and much work remains to be done in our statewide work to preserve history. Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions about the budget numbers, but we're just so excited about all the different projects that are happening, and I wanted to mention one more. Up on the 3rd floor of the Minnesota Capitol is a gallery that has been quiet and dark for the last couple of years, and a new exhibit just opened on Monday called Our Austin, Our America was done. It was a real great collaborative effort with the community of Austin, first of all. The Department of Administration, the State Arts Board provided a grant for that photo exhibit, and we helped to put the exhibit up. It's beautiful, it's colorful, and it tells the story of residents of Austin who maybe moved there recently or have lived there a long time. So I'd encourage you to stop by the 3rd floor gallery in the Minnesota Capitol. Mr. Chair, with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kelleher, and I know you're here at every meeting, and that means a lot to me. So if members have questions, that's appreciated by the chair and others. And I see a lot of our presentations that come through here. You know, I kind of try to channel people to go to you, and I know that you are, and will continue to be responsive to those questions. And Vice Chair Hussein and I were able to see the exhibit. We went off the House floor. I think Representative Mueller was mentioned on the House floor. So if you do get an opportunity to go up to see that display, I need to get back, but I was really, the photos, like you said, are really amazing.
I would have totally recommended to check it out. I would have totally recommended to check it out because how diverse and beautiful pictures are in Austin, Minnesota. I never thought about it, until I see on my own eyes. So it was beautiful pictures, and I would have recommended my colleagues to check it out. Thanks.
Representative Becker.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. And thank you for sharing that letter from Browns Valley there. And I know our historical society works really hard. My question, somewhat of a new kid on the block, what process does your society do to, when grants are awarded, to verify, or if you want to use the word audit, to make sure that they're being used for what they're supposed to be used? Because obviously these are public dollars. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kelleher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Backer. That's a great question. We have a grants office that helps grantees from beginning to end. They hold open houses, and to Chair Lilly's point about learning about the grants process and learning about the dollars that are available, they hold open houses to explain to potential grant applicants how the process works. We have an online grants management system, so all the information is contained so that our staff and the grant applicant can have access to the same information. The decisions are made for recommending which grants are going to be funded by a citizen advisory committee called the Historic Resources Advisory Committee. We call it the HRAC for short. That citizen group typically spends 2 days in the fall to recommend grants, larger grants over $10,000 to our board, which makes the final approval on those. After the grant is awarded, we write up a grant agreement with the grant recipient that spells out exactly what the grant recipient is going to do for that funding, all the requirements in state law that they must follow. And then if the grant is over a certain threshold, there will be a site visit, and they will report on what they're doing at different milestones. And there's a final report before the final dollars are released, depending on the size of the grant and the type of work that is done. So the grants office is keeping an eye on the project all the way through, beginning to end. And the letter that we pulled the quote from was from the final report that recipient submitted all their final information and went the extra mile and sent a thank you note to us, which we really appreciated. So, Mr. Chair, I hope that answers your question, Representative Packer.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one of the things I remember about Minnesota Historical Society is when you guys did the 40th year Hmong exhibit, and it was a great exhibit. I think it's one of the first time the Hmong community has saw themselves as part of Minnesota history. And a lot of our elders, this is something that a lot of our elders really cherish because they have a lot of cultural assets that have been passed down from many generations. And they see the Minnesota Historical Society as a grandeur institution to preserve that. However, I heard that after the exhibit and after the elders have given the society cultural items for you guys to preserve, I heard that you guys sent just a letter back to them to say to just go pick up their things. So I don't know, your mission is to preserve Minnesota's history and cultural heritage. So how do you authentically continue to do that as our communities continue to be more diverse and be a part of Minnesota's fabric? To put it bluntly, it was quite disrespectful to our elders. And so I'll leave it with that, Mr. Chair.
Director Whitworth, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Chair Lilly and Chair Vang. I am aware of that situation. My understanding is that unfortunately that type of communication was initially sent, but I think we have been able to rectify that. We have apologized. We understand how disrespectful that was. It was a situation, unfortunately, where there was an internal breakdown between exhibit staff and collection staff. But my understanding is that most all of those collections that were included in the exhibition are in the process or have been accessioned into the permanent collection of the Minnesota Historical Society.
Chair Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I hope that the society continues to look at how we can continue to be authentic in building relationships with, not just the Hmong community, but as communities continue to build a home here and be part of our history. Our communities don't have capacity to continue to hold these important cultural artifacts and assets. We have the Hmong Cultural Museum, but they're very tiny and they don't have that capacity. And so how do you guys continue to be able to help us preserve our history that's also part of Minnesota's history too? And I hope that you continue to work on that. Thank you.
President Whitworth, or Director Whitworth.
Chair and Representative, thank you. We are absolutely committed to improving our procedures and strengthening those long-term relationships. So,
I know from past experience, because I've asked you these conversations after the Somali exhibit, and then I know you've kind of had an interaction of ongoing of making sure some of those artifacts, but I wasn't aware of this other. So I know I think the Somali was afterwards, so maybe you had learned from some mistakes maybe or some missteps. Director Whitworth.
Thank you, Chair. I think we are continuing to learn and hopefully grow in our capacity and our ability to build long-term relationships with all Minnesotans. Just a note about the Somali exhibition, one of the end results of that relationship leading up to the exhibition is we had a couple of colleagues on staff actually join the board of the Somali Museum. So hopefully that's an indication of where our heads and hearts are in terms of the depth of the relationships we're trying to build going forward.
Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. As Hmong Americans, we have really rich history. It goes over 5,000 years. But it's non-existent because we've been persecuted. We've been, our history hasn't been recorded, you know. So what we have left is the liberty and freedoms that we have here in America. We're not fighting just for Hmong Americans in America. We're fighting for Hmong Americans or Hmong in general all across our countries, all the way back to Asia. There's a certain responsibility as a historical society to honor our community as we've been here since 1975. We didn't choose to come to America. We're refugees of a war that was set upon our community and our people, and we're here as refugees. That means we can't go back to our country. So everything that we're building in America is all we have left of our thousands of years of ancestral history in our elders. And that's the important of the history that Rep. Vang was mentioning to you. But I have a question here. Can you tell me the process here of your selection of your HRAC and your Minnesota Historical Society Executive Council? Can you walk me through the process of selecting members to these committees?
Yes.
Director Whitworth.
Thank you, Chair and Representative Xiong. So you were asking both about the Executive Council, the governing board for the organization, and for the Historic
your
Resources
selection
Advisory Group, yes. I will talk about the governing board, and then I may turn to David Kelleher to talk a little more about HRAC. But we have a governance committee within the Executive Council, which is our governing board, and they are constantly looking for potential candidates for the board. It's an ongoing thing. It's not something we just do a couple of months before the annual meeting, so to speak. We have actually got a very detailed matrix, set of metrics that look at ethnicity, that look at geography, that look at professional expertise, and community engagement. So when in our mission, and I think we talked about this at the last visit with the committee, our mission statement says we serve all Minnesotans, and we are, as I said earlier, very committed to leaning into that. And so I think if you look at our board over the last 5 to 10 years, you see much more diversity in all of those categories that we've talked about. Happy to visit one-on-one and actually show you the metrics that we use and how we handle that. But frankly, I'm grateful that that's such a strong commitment of our governing board, and that it's not staff-driven. The governance committee is actively engaged in that work. So, and we have had Hmong representation, leadership, committee chair level representation on the board in the last few years. We will continue that. But I think if you look at our composition, that it is increasingly representative, and that is certainly our commitment long term. So with regard to HRAC, I'll turn to David.
Mr. Chair, Representative Cha, I guess I would say a couple things. There's a listing of the HRAC members in this report that shows the professional qualifications, and the legislation that appropriates funds for the grants program sets out who's supposed to be represented on the HRAC by professional discipline. I think we use a similar mindset, if not matrix, to make sure that the members of the HRAC represent the geography of the state, the different dimensions of diversity of the state, and I think you can see to the extent that that's visible from the names and professional qualifications that we have not achieved perfection, but we're working toward having good representation on that committee.
Representative Cha.
Thank you, Trilly. Well, thanks for the information about, having past, API members on your board. When I look at your Minnesota Historical Society Executive Council, I'm looking at these names. And if you look up here, you see 4 Hmong Americans sitting on this council. When I look at this, I'm looking for API names. I want you to take that into account, because it's been a challenge to get the seat at this table, but we're here. Thank you.
Representative Lee. Chair Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe Director Kelleher, paragraph C, funding for partnerships. Can you tell us the current partnerships that you have and then the type of work that is being accomplished by this partnership, specifically on preserving and enhancing access to history and cultural heritage?
Director Kelleher.
Mr. Chair, Representative Lee, if you take a look at this report, there's a listing of the different partnership activities on page 37, and there's a tab that says partnerships. Just trying to pick a few out at quick glance. One of the partnerships that you all have been exposed to is our partnership with the Northern Bedrock Historic Preservation Corps that teaches young people about the trades and the opportunities within the historic preservation field. The other area that I would mention is that the activities of our community engagement department. When we were here before, you met our colleague Avi Vishwanathan, who leads that effort. A lot of those efforts, including Native American initiatives and other community engagement work, is funded through the partnership area.
Chair Lee.
Thank you, Chair. So, Director Kelleher, when I think about partnerships, I'm thinking about the partnerships that you have with other organizations throughout the state. And as we can see with the agenda that we have today with the chair, at least 5 of them are smaller museums, I would say, across the state. And the total request here is about 7.25 million. And when I did a rough math of the request of the 5 programs in here, it's about 2.045 million. And so in the event that these other museums coming up today, that they're not going to get their funding in a appropriations bill, and this one does, can we expect that the 5 other museums coming up today will be able to tap into this funding stream or not? Because it seems like, just looking at the report, it's not really listing anyone in particular. Maybe I'm just not, looking at it clear enough, but it seems like they're just looking at building capacity, preservation education, diversity outreach, and so not necessarily targeting these specific museums throughout the state.
Mr. Chair, Representative Lee, the definition of partnership is multiple organizations working together, and those can be either Minnesota Historical Society working with another organization, or 2 or more other organizations working together to achieve a history project. We may or may not have spelled out explicitly who the partners are, but they are by definition projects where multiple organizations are working together. To your question, if there are some organizations out there that want to partner with us or partner with other organizations, absolutely, that's what this is for, to work on. And they can contact me or Avi or our grants office to learn more about that, and we welcome that. That's what this funding is for.
Chair Herr, and I'm sorry to the people following, we're 17 minutes behind, but I really value the question. So, Chair Herr.
Thank you, Chair Lilly, and thank you for the testifiers and represented here for the bill. I too really enjoy what you all have to offer, and so this is not necessarily a criticism of any one of you, but I guess just to offer Representative Vang's point, I just learned very recently too that there was a couple of individuals, an individual where you actually worked with in order to secure a lot of these the artifacts for the exhibit. And I asked him how much he got paid to do that, and he said very minimally. And I was really disappointed when he told me everything that he did, that he actually went to each elder's house, picked up their materials, made sure that he documented what he took from each person, and then that he was responsible to return it. And when I think, and this is not, like I said, this is not a criticism of you, I think this is a criticism of how our institutions here are run, is that the people with the most access and the most funding they pay themselves, and then the people who we generally ask for labor that is not well paid are always the people from marginalized communities and communities of color and communities that already don't have resources. And so I guess what I'd like to just challenge all of you is that in the future, as Rep. Lee was talking about partnerships, when you are in community, working with community, pay them. Don't pay yourselves and your programs for what you are doing and then ask them to do all of this labor and not give them what it is that they should be getting. And so I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, but I really just wanted to make sure that we make that comment because we have to decide that we're going to change how institutions operate. And so when we do go into community, especially as Representative Vang's charged to ask all of you how you're going to be more inclusive of our diverse communities that are growing, how do you honor those diverse communities by ensuring that you're not coming to us to ask for money to pay for what you all do, and then we don't actually adequately pay those that we are asking for their time and their resources. Thank you, Chair Lilly.
Director Whitworth.
Chair Lilly, Representative, thank you so much, Representative Vang. I was not here during that project, so I'm not very familiar with that particular budget, but I can speak to more recent efforts, and I'll just use Dakota Community Council as an example, where we have tried to be very proactive in making sure that that the work that's done on behalf of Minnesota and in some cases the Minnesota Historical Society is appropriately compensated, and the travel and all those kinds of expenses are covered for the very reasons you mentioned. So I'd like to think that maybe we are continuing to learn those important lessons, but would be happy to visit offline a little bit more about the specifics behind that particular project. Thank you.
So, thank you. I think I'm glad we've had an opportunity to hear some of the good things and some of the things where we can do clearly better. Representative Huot, final comments.
Thank you, Chair Lilly, and thank you, committee members, for the robust discussion. As you even heard in this room today, that history matters, and the only way we change history is by reading it, learning it, and not doing it again if it's poor. So I appreciate the discussion. We can always do better and not repeat our problems. So thank you, committee, and hopefully, Chair, you can consider this for your omnibus. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Huot, and thank you, the Historical Society team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Urdahl. Representative Urdahl, welcome back to Legacy as the former chair. I don't know if you have a special dispensation. Can't even say the word. If you have special rights, but welcome. Go ahead, sir.
Thank
Tell
you,
us about what you're working
Chair.
on, sir.
Always good to be before the Legacy Committee, but normally I was sitting out there. I was on this committee since its founding up until now, but I do appreciate the work that you do. Just general comments here. I have 4 bills we'll move right through them and hopefully get you closer to back on schedule. We'll see what happens. Just keep in mind, these are all fine pieces of legislation. So let us begin. The first one is House File 224, dealing with the state band. The Minnesota, and I should say, preface this by saying that 3 of the bills that I'm going to be presenting have all been funded through this committee before. We have 1 new program. The Minnesota State Band is a nonprofit organization for the purpose of contributing to the musical development and appreciation of music in the state of Minnesota. The Minnesota State Band was founded in 1898, and the band is celebrating their 125th anniversary this year with special concerts, including the Minnesota History Center on April 22nd in the band's founding month. The band is the only remaining state band in the United States. And with that, I would like to introduce my testifier, Craig Allen.
Thank you, Representative Urdahl. Good morning, Mr. Allen. Go ahead when you're ready, sir.
Good morning. My name is Craig Allen, and I am a member of the Board of Directors for the Minnesota State Band, and I also play drums in the band. The Minnesota State Band is a 45-piece concert band that performs a wide variety of music throughout the year. Except for the conductor, no one in the organization is paid. In fact, every band member has to pay a fee of $80 a year to remain as a member. And as Dean Urdahl mentioned, this year the band celebrates 125 years as an arts organization. We are definitely a part of Minnesota's rich history. If we receive legacy funding, our goals are to increase the number of concert tours, continuing to reach out to smaller communities in outstate Minnesota, sharing our love of music with residents and playing joint concerts with community bands and school bands throughout the state. Many arts organizations perform only in large concert halls. In contrast, the Minnesota State Band brings its music to people performing in the communities where they live. Most arts organizations charge an admission fee. Well, the Minnesota State Band never charges admission. Every concert is free and open to the public. We've provided the committee with a handout which describes in detail 3 concert tours using our first legacy grant. And look at what we achieved. We traveled to Alexandria and performed a joint concert with the Alexandria High School Band. On another trip, we joined the Moose Lake Community Band in a concert on the Iron Range, and that was a 3-day tour. We entertained over 500 young people at the Cherry School in Iron, Minnesota, and we performed at the 1910 Opera House in Litchfield. The only thing that prevents us from traveling to more towns and playing in more community and school bands is money. After all, it takes quite a bit to transport a 50-member or 45-member concert band from town to town. But that is exactly what we'd like to do. People who live in small towns deserve a variety of quality music, just as people in larger cities. During the pandemic, when we were unable to perform, the Minnesota State Band worked hard to improve our organization. We hired an accounting firm to audit our accounts. That firm was Abo, Eek, and Myers. They found that our finances were in order and there were no improprieties. The Minnesota State Band hired attorney Michael Gibbons, who was familiar with nonprofit law, to help us revise our bylaws and draft stronger protections and policies to address harassment and conflicts of interest. Finally, the band hired a mediator, Dan Simon, to help resolve some issues that threatened to split our small nonprofit. We are committed to operating our organization in the most ethical and financially responsible manner that we can in order to preserve the future of the Minnesota State Band. Please support the Minnesota State Band, the only remaining state band in the nation. And if I Chair, I would like to turn it over to our president of the Minnesota State Band.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Craig's comments. Working with the band has been a pleasure. We've worked really hard to make it a better organization. Just to kind of give you an idea of what we're planning on performing for our concert in April on the 22nd, we've got, see here, 4 modern works that reflect our commitments to Earth Day and to provide music with a little different cultural aspect to it. Song of the Seer, Earth Song, Canticle of the Creatures, and the Mars and Venus March. We're going to perform a Porgy and Bess highlights, of more of a classical type work, and also the first suite in E flat. Salvation is Created, which is also a beautiful classical work, Russian in nature, very, very moving. So, and then one of our most popular events is our concerts at Como Park at the pavilion there, and there we perform some classical works, and also we do a lot of popular works, show tunes and that kind of thing. So it's musical, it's accessible to the entire public, and we always get pretty good reception there, so it's always fun to do that too. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Allen.
you.
And Mr. Kennedy, any final information that you'd like us to have, Representative Urdahl?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think they covered it well.
Okay. Chair Herr.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. Representative Urdahl, can you just tell a little bit about the reach of each of these events? And are you planning with this funding to go to the same 3 locations, or are you planning 3 different stops with the $50,000 that's being asked?
Well,
Representative Urdahl.
Mr. Chair, Representative Herr, they have a statewide commitment, and basically they go, the number of concerts they have depends in some part on the funding that comes from this group. And so I think they outlined before the numbers of concerts that they have, and I imagine they'll do something similar or expand it again depending on the funding.
Chair, if I may also
Mr.
comment.
Allen.
We absolutely want to visit every part of the state of Minnesota. So it's not just that the Iron Range just happened to be the first one from the first legacy funds, but our intent is to visit everywhere. And we'd love suggestions on that realm too. We would take it very seriously. For a smaller town, they would love to have us.
Chair Herr.
Just a quick follow-up, Chair Lilly. And I really do love the concept of this because it is really difficult for people to actually get access to high-quality performances that are live, and there is nothing better than listening to a band or an orchestra or symphony play live, and so I really appreciate it. And my own 2 children were actually part of a traveling operetta that took traditional opera pieces and then infused it with like different genres of music, and it was amazing and such high quality. We'd have people come back from New York off Broadway to come and perform in these operettas. And so we would travel all over this, and they did that for many years. So I'm really supportive of this type of program for access. But again, I've said this many times in this committee with Chair Lilly, is that, you know, that particular operetta gets no state funding, and they have great access and great reach, and the audiences are very diverse. And so I struggle with that, why some programs get direct appropriations and others don't. And so know that that's, you know, structurally, I'd like to maybe take a look at that more to say why some programs do and some don't, because these other programs also travel across the state and giving access to the types of public performances that may not be accessible. But I do want you all to know that I love this, and I would love to see more Chopin and more like some of these other traditional pieces that I don't get to hear as much. And so thank you all for what you do, and this is really important work, and music is what keeps people alive, and it, you know, connects them to places where they've heard the music before. We know the importance of music to aging brains and what that means for recollection of like times and periods and information. And so I think that for all aspects from birth to the end of stage of life, that music is very important. So I thank you all for what you do choose to do because you don't get paid to do it. So thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Allen and Mr. Kennedy. Thank you for coming. Representative Urdahl, now we are moving on. I think we get to hear from our favorite Urdahl.
Thank you, guys.
Which I'm quite excited about.
Oh, wow, the better half.
It's been dreary weather, so trying to brighten
We all
things up.
appreciate your husband, but I think, but we're excited to have you here with us.
Thank you.
And Representative Urdahl, catch us up.
All right. Thank you, again, Mr. Chair and members. Number 2 on the agenda for us here, the Litchfield Opera House. This is a historic building in Litchfield, Minnesota. It is on the Registry of Historic Buildings. It was once listed as one of the most endangered buildings in the state of Minnesota. The City Council actually passed a motion to demolish it and establish a new parking lot, which would have been extremely unfortunate. Thanks to the, in large part, to the efforts of folks in the community, but also to the legacy funding that they have received over the years, the building was saved and has now become a vibrant part of the community and the cultural events of not just Litchfield, but the entire area. And so with that, I will introduce, what was your name again? My wife Karen is on the board.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr.
Please state
Chair
your name and go ahead when you're ready, please.
Legacy Committee members. I'm Karen Urdahl. The Litchfield Opera House is entering final stages of historic restoration and renovation in cooperation with the Minnesota Historical Society in SHPO. It is operated under the direction of the Greater Litchfield Opera House Association, which is a 501c3. And as you heard, this is, it was built in 1900 and it's on the National Registry. As part of our programming, the board makes a point of providing services to underserved communities. One example is performances by the Minnesota State Band. Another prime example is our youth theater. All children and youth who want to be in plays take part at no cost to them. For many other theater options are not affordable. All our board members are volunteer and receive no compensation. Connie Lease, who is here with us today, is our facilities coordinator, a board member, past president, and our Litchfield Opera House guru. She is proud to have sourced all the wood for our recent project from a mill in Minnesota. All products that we use are made in Minnesota or purchased locally. And I would like to turn this over to Connie.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and go ahead when you're ready, please.
My name is Connie Lease, and I'm going to spell the last name. It's Lies. Okay? As Karen said, I am the facilities coordinator at the Litchfield Opera House. The Litchfield Opera House, when it was built, was the grandest opera house west of the Mississippi River. It had over 300 electric lights in 1900 when most places had no electricity at all. We have a record of immigrants who came off the train one evening to see the building that was glowing like gold. It has a golden brick, as you can see from the picture below us, plus all the lights were lit up and this beautiful spider windows. and they thought they had truly arrived in the land with the streets of gold. And they really, at first, thought that building was made of gold. It was so beautiful. From that point in 1900, when it was built, it began to encompass all of the great history of our area. It was everything. It was the everything place. It was the first place the Edison phonograph was played. It was where the Volstead Act was first thought about being done by Mr. Volstead, who came to find out how to write the 14th Amendment. It was places where senators spoke. The funerals were held there. It was a place of theater, the first grand theater that many of these people had ever had a chance to see. It was also the home of the band for 60 years. So it was great to have the Minnesota Band come back. We have some of the best acoustics in the state of Minnesota. So we have recordings that are done there for emerging artists, etc. We are working with this to continue on with our plan. We had a planning grant that laid out what we should do for the Opera House, and it's approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. As time went on, from the original estimates to when we were actually, after the pandemic, able to go out for bids, the project had went from $100,000 to $400,000. We took the $100,000 that we were given and we parlayed it into almost $200,000 worth of work to be accomplished. We did this by receiving a grant from another source for $8,000 for the stage that we had to rebuild to meet safety codes. We also found that our contractor did not have a carpenter capable of building the beautiful column covers that we needed. And we have a master finish carpenter who's retired that's on our board. And he stepped up to the plate and built them to the specifications of the Historical Society. We then found that they did not have the labor to do all the staining and varnishing. And we again stepped up and did that. So by doing a lot of equity, of sweat equity, and being very frugal in how and where we sourced our materials, and finding that the cheapest sources and best sources, by the way, were Minnesota lumber and Minnesota mills. We've been able to do this project. We would like to continue with the project for another $100,000 to work on our mezzanine balcony level. Those are not currently usable for the general public, but it would add 100 seating capacity to our overall capacity, which would greatly help, because at 200 we are selling out our children's theaters, and other events are sold out, and we need that 100 seating spaces. It would also finish off the beautiful main floor interior that would then have restored it to a lot of the glory it had in its time. Remember, we are building tomorrow's history. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Representative Urdahl, glad to see you here, and Ms. Urdahl for being here. Was hoping that we will be serving on Legacy together this year, but unfortunately that's not the case. And so, Representative Urdahl, earlier this week we had a organization, and a former part of my district come in and ask for an appropriation, and a member of the committee asked, why are we singling out that organizations for funding? And so understanding that you, when you were chair and as a member of the Legacy Committee, you found it important enough to fund that organization's Appetite for Change and the Litchfield Opera House. Can you share with us the importance of why we should consider, and previous committees have considered, funding direct appropriations to organizations like that?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Urdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Lee. First of all, I have a great affinity for maintaining and restoring historic buildings. I just think it's an important part of our history and what we should do. I was the author of the bill to restore the Capitol. I've been worked on the Chatfield Arts Center in Chatfield to restore that. I could go on with a lot of buildings that I've been involved with because, again, I think that it's important to preserve our history, but also to preserve it as a living history. You know, this is a building that has gone through a lot over the years since its founding. It was, as I said, almost demolished. The building had the original interior had been changed completely. It was city offices, and then they built a new city hall and gutted the interior. It needed to be saved. I mean, it's where I saw Santa Claus for the first time. I mean, and that's why I think it's important. It's not just the Litchfield Opera House. You know, other buildings of this type, of this historic importance, I also think need to be preserved as to the best extent possible.
Chair Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment. I really appreciate that response, Representative Urdahl, and I think the importance of our committee here, whether that's preserving our history through a building like the Litchfield Opera House, or preserving our history through the food that we eat, like what Appetite for Change was proposing to do or is proposing to continue to do. I think that that's important for our committee and for the entire state of Minnesota, and so I really appreciate seeing Representative Urdahl here today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any final comments on this project, Representative Urdahl? And then we'll thank you for your guests for coming today. And again, we very much appreciate their coming, and we always love to see your wonderful wife.
We do too.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry. I almost brought Buster with today. He's got a green bow tie on. Buster's my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time that
I think Buster almost killed us on the bonding tour.
Yeah, when we were on the bonding tour last summer, we stopped at the Opera House, and Buster greeted everybody. But no, thank you very much. Appreciate your consideration of this.
Thank you. Representative Urdahl. We're 25 minutes over, so maybe you can make it up on.
Then move it.
Maybe you could start talking as they're
Yeah.
coming forward, please.
All right. In the spirit of what we're talking about, with restoring, maintaining buildings, it's also part of our maintaining our history through culture. And that's what this is. This is the new program, new funding that I'm referring to today. The Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians for the Red Lake Nation Tribal College Urban Center wants to develop new programs for the Red Lake Nation Community Dance Choir. So again, I think it's an important part of preserving history is preserving culture and preserving the activities of ethnic and indigenous groups. And to that end, I have with me President Dan King of the Red Lake Nation Tribal College.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Welcome, President King.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan King, President, Red Lake Nation College, and Hereditary Chief of the Red Lake Nation. I would like to thank Chair Lilly, Vice Chair Hussein, and all the committee members for hearing us today. I would also like to thank Representative Urdahl, who's our chief author for HF 2656, which is for $100,000 for arts from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund for Red Lake Nation College Community Dance Choir. And I also wanted to thank Representative Urdahl for being a champion for Native issues over the years. So on behalf of all Native people, we really appreciate that we have you in the legislature. Miigwech. I'm also here with my daughter, the better looking one of us on the far right, Nakima King. And Nakima is a student at the University of Minnesota dance program, and she'll be doing a full introduction in a few minutes. But first, I just wanted to tell you very briefly, I know you're tight on time, so we'll keep our college story and our dance program to about 4 minutes, and then I wanted you to hear from Nakima a little bit. So there you see our new campus in downtown Minneapolis. And our college is really a 2-year community college for natives. So we serve a unique market niche that nobody else is serving, and that's native people on reservations or in native communities. And so what really makes us unique and what we do better than others at educating natives is our secret sauce is small classes, personalized one-on-one attention, and we provide what we call a family college, and we're in the people business. We build people up, we build up their academic skills, their confidence, so that after 2 years they say, I could go to a 4-year school, I could get a master's, become a PhD, a lawyer, and then come back and help my community. So we provide higher education from a native perspective. And that's really important to have the culture, language, pride, and values of our people infused in the education. Too many times, Indigenous people are not in the history books at all. There's nothing about us. And oftentimes, this is the first time that a lot of our students have seen a Native instructor or a staff member or a college president in their lives when they come to our school. So role modeling is very important. We have the gold standard of accreditation, which is the regional accreditation through the Higher Learning Commission. So what that means is we have to meet the same academic standards. We're in the same arena as those excellent universities in our region, such as Notre Dame, University of Minnesota. We have ease of transfer for our credits, so we transfer to all the MnSCU schools. We have articulation agreements with every Minnesota school, and so we're really a feeder system for the state schools. And this is proof that what we're doing is working. When you compare us to the U.S. national rate and the Minnesota state, our persistence rates are actually above those levels, 85%. Our retention rates are right in the ballpark of U.S. and Minnesota state standards. Take a look at the high school graduation rates. Nationally, about 88%, Minnesota, 87%. For Minnesota natives, 35 to 58%. And that 35% comes from Red Lake. So natives really suffer from the worst socioeconomic statistics in really any category you look at. And our tribal college model works. The return on investment is huge with the major impacts. Let's take a look at Minnesota higher ed funding from 2021. The University of Minnesota, $684 million. The Minnesota state system, $353. The 3 tribal colleges in Minnesota, Red Lake, Leech Lake, and White Earth, which represent 70% of the natives in Minnesota, they got nothing. So we're the only 3 Minnesota public higher education schools to not receive any direct funding. We do have a couple bills that are up for this term, and we're hopeful we'll get them passed. One of them is HF 750, and that's the Senate version there. We also have a bill up to finish our $3 million Minneapolis campus that you saw, and that's SF 1700 and HF 2343. So hopefully we'll get those passed this year too. Here's the location, downtown Minneapolis, right across from US Bank Stadium. You could actually probably throw a rock from our school and hit the stadium, but there's a metro right in front of us. That's what it looks like currently. We have that mini block of 3 buildings, and here's what it'll look like in a year from now by the end of December. So that's going to be a beautiful facility. Here's a few pictures of the interior. It's going to be 21st century. You're going to know you're in a native space, high technology throughout. But really, we need resources to affect change. And so the native canyon that we have here in Minnesota is rooted in economics and lack of funding. And we can't even say underfunding. We have to say never funding. because that's been the history here. We've never got funding for our tribal colleges. And that lack of funding results in basic infrastructure like this campus we need and the fine arts programs, which are seen as an extra luxury. So in our history, our ancestors were masters of adaptation and survival, whether it was environment, technology, political, and this will now be applied to the sciences, the fine arts. I also, over the years, I just said, you know, I wanted a choir. You know, don't you just love choirs? You know, they're very positive energy, it's inspiring, it's spiritual, and the wellness factor. And I was talking to one of our tribal members, Anna Marie Hill, and I was telling her about my dream, and she said, you know what, Dan, I've always wanted to direct a choir. And here she's got a musical background, plays the piano, just a beautiful person. And so together we were talking about this, and she said, why don't we add a traditional native drum and dance to a contemporary choir? And so we were talking about that. And then I started telling my daughter, Nikema, and she's a member of the Upper Skagit tribe of Washington. And she's danced with, she has professional goals to be a dancer, and has danced with the Lamone group from New York City when they were recently at on the U of M campus, and has some Ordway theater contacts. She said, why don't we blend that with contemporary dance? Do what you're doing with the choir and make that modern and add that. Let's have some adaptation there. So I thought that was a fantastic idea. And so that's kind of how we came up where we're here today with you. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Nikema and let her tell you her quick story.
Thank you, President King. Welcome, Ms. King. Please introduce yourself and go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. So my name is Nikema King. I am an enrolled tribal member of the Upper Skagit tribe in Washington State and a descendant in the Choctaw Nation. I am an undergraduate student at the University of Minnesota, studying in Bachelor's of Fine Arts and Dance, and I'm also currently trying to be a student at Red Lake Nation College and working as an intern for them. I started dancing when I was 3 years old, and I haven't stopped ever since. 17 long years I've been performing and dancing in front of large crowds and audiences. This has been a passion of mine and a life career that I want to achieve. Growing up, there was always a lack of representation of Indigenous people in the fine arts. Accessibility within the fine arts is not always readily available for the vast majority of Indigenous people associated with being a part of the fine arts. The cost associated with being a part of the fine arts community is exponentially high. There is rarely little to no funding for BIPOC families and communities. Dance, music, and art is a big part of our culture, and it brings us to the roots of who we are as people. Bringing access to low-income families and communities is why Red Lake Nation College is here to provide the space for this to happen. To bring access such as art, dance, and music to our communities. Our goal is to intertwine, as Dan King said, the culture and traditions with contemporary and modern styles of the fine arts, acknowledging the Native diaspora and the lack of it. The need for this is long overdue. The benefits would bring accessibility to people in the communities who have not had these opportunities. With the continuing decline of art, music, and dance within the public schools, accessibility to artistic funding is vitally important to connect Native communities. The state of Minnesota should fund the programs because it is important for our society to impress cultural arts at multiple levels. And I want to, once we get a date set, I want to invite all of you to the first performance to see this wonderful creation that I am creating. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any member questions? Seeing none at this point. Thank you, President, and Representative Urdahl, any additional information you'd like us to have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think they've covered it pretty well. I think this is an important area to fund, and it's been a long time coming, I think, to get some assistance to groups like this. So thank you.
Thank you. Excited to see your new campus. That
Yeah,
looks amazing.
we invite anybody out there to come and visit us. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Representative Urdahl,
Thank you. Last but not least,
go ahead and get started as your guests are coming forward. And,
yes, this is the
we have
civics program, not my civics bill. This is something different. For civics, Minnesota civics education, it's an essential part of our democracy. And the Minnesota Civics Education Coalition consists of the Learning Law and Democracy Foundation and the YMCA Center for Youth Voice, home to the program that many of us have come to love, Youth in Government. This funding is critical. For these organizations to continue to execute their missions that benefit the next generation of our state's leaders. And I have some testifiers today who will tell you a little bit more about the programs.
Director Bloom, I believe. Go ahead when you're ready, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for inviting us to testify today. My name is Amy Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of the YMCA Center for Youth Voice and Youth in Government. When it comes to civic education, I was one of the lucky ones. I grew up with parents who were very civically minded and who talked to me about the theoretical and the political and the practical aspects of being a citizen, including its rights and responsibilities. I had teachers like Representative Urdahl, who were passionate about civic education and who encouraged me to learn how our government works, along with the rules and practices that we need to preserve our democracy. Not every child in our state is so lucky. In the past few decades, the focus of public education has turned sharply towards science, math, and literacy. At the federal level, we spend approximately $54 per student per year on STEM education, and approximately 15 cents on civics education. The reality is students need both. There's nothing wrong with STEM education. I'm a big proponent, but we think that we'd like that balance to be a little bit more equal. Preparation to participate in the workforce and preparation to participate in our civic society are both critical skills. I'm certain that many of you share my pride in Minnesota consistently leading the nation in voter turnout. That accomplishment is not an accident. The fact is our state has developed a strong civic culture around voting. Part of the way we do that is through programs like Students Voting, one of the programs we run as a partnership with the YMCA and the Secretary of State's office. This year, thanks to legacy funds, more than 100,000 K-12 students cast a ballot on or just before Election Day. Why is it important to create these kind of opportunities for students to participate in our election process? Because we know that voting is a habit that we create. And studies show that voting is, once you've voted once, even if it's in school, you are more likely to vote when you turn 18. And when you vote when you're 18, you're more likely to continue voting year after year. I'm guessing that just about everyone in this room shares the goal of raising young people to become good citizens, not just in the legal sense, but we want to raise children who are respectful to others, who care about their communities, who take a stand for things they oppose, and advocate for issues that they're important to them and their communities. But raising good citizens doesn't just happen automatically. I'm a parent, and just like we teach our children to brush their teeth, eat healthy foods, exercise, get enough sleep, we teach them study habits. These are things we have to do to develop them as humans. And we also need to do that in terms of civics to help develop the knowledge, skills, and motivation to want to participate in our civic life. We cannot take Minnesota's well-known civic culture for granted. We need to continue investing in the next generation of civic leaders and change makers so they will continue to see themselves as invested in our future. Thank you for your time today and for making these programs possible through legacy funding. And now I have the pleasure to introduce Hauser, one of the amazing young change makers we work with all the time, who has participated in not one, not two, but 3 YMCA Center for Youth Voice programs over the past few years. Hauser is a senior at Higher Ground Academy in St. Paul, who has also taken on a leadership role with our Youth Steering Committee. He's here today to tell you what he has learned through involvement in our programs and why he believes civic education is so important.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Welcome. Please state your name and go ahead when you're ready, please, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the members of the committee. My name is Upshur Hauser. I am a senior who attends Higher Ground Secondary Academy. I have been to many CYV events and activities like Youth in Government, Model United Nations twice, National Judicial Competition, or otherwise known as NJC. I will be attending this upcoming KONA, or otherwise known as Conference on National Affairs, which takes place in North Carolina. I will be attending, I have only been doing CYV activities since March 2022 and have learned so much. I engage with new people I had never met with and people from different backgrounds. I'm also part of the State Steering Committee, which concludes of representatives from different schools who come together 4 to 5 times a year and work together to make youth in government and other CYV activities better and connect with other delegations/schools to allow more people to acknowledge CYV activities and possibly one day be a part of it. I also took it upon myself at last year's State Fair to volunteer and speak at the CYV booth and promote its activities. I love getting to tell people about things like youth in government and Model United Nations, and for them to get interested and possibly sign their own children up one day, and for other children who are in grades 7 to 12 to sign up. I believe that civic learning programs that the CYV provides are 100% beneficial, and if not, life-changing. Civic education through the CYV has opened many doors to opportunities and topics I have never known or even acknowledged. In a short span of a year, I have met and made over 100 new friends and learned and debate about topics varying from undocumented immigrants being allowed to have an education in the U.S. to things like why Russia/Ukraine war should end, and others like starving communities in the world in specific areas. I never had any interest in the government field prior to doing CYV activities, but it has shown me a new aspiration, and I hope one day I could be a part of government and make a change to our state, country, and the world. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to present this statement.
Thank you. Nice job, too, by the way. It's just, I'm really impressed when students can come up here and do. That was wonderful. Any closing comments? Any additional information you'd like from us or to offer us? Representative Urdahl?
I would like to
Not on this particular, any questions or anything? Otherwise, there is a question.
Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. Thank you, Representative Urdahl, for bringing your bills forward in this committee. It shows the diverse humanity care that you put forth through your legislation, and good luck with the bills. We will be supporting it. Thank you.
I'll say one comment.
Okay. Vice Chair Hussein.
Representative Earl, thank you for bringing forward my nephew, Upshur. It's brilliant, and looking forward to seeing you continue the hard work you're doing. Great job.
I did not know that, by the way, there was that connection. We actually chose this young man purely based on his enthusiasm. We have come to know him over the last year, and he does not miss a chance to speak out on what this has meant to him. So when I was asked to think about testifying to bring somebody, I thought right away, not even making the connection that happened. So that's pretty cool.
That's quite impressive. Representative Urdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to present my 4 bills to you today, and I appreciate all the work that you do and will continue to do. I believe that this is a very important committee, maybe one of the 2 most important committees in the whole legislature. Being that chaired 2 committees in the legislature, this is one of them. But thank you. Appreciate what you do and what you will be continuing to do.
Thank you, guests and Representative Urdahl, and very nice job, and thank you for your leadership on this committee in the past. And Majority Leader Long, we're only 20 minutes behind. No, I'm kidding. We're catching up, maybe.
Get ready for tough questions.
So welcome to the Legacy Committee, sir, and I see you have some guests, and go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Lilly. Appreciate it a lot. So I am here today on behalf of the Bakken Museum, which is located in my district. And the Bakken Museum was founded in 1975 by Earl Bakken, who was the inventor of the external pacemaker and a co-founder of Medtronic. And the museum is dedicated to STEM education, targeted at kids and the ability for them to learn about medicine, learn about electricity. It is a really fun museum to visit, but the main reason we're here is that they do educational programming for students all over the state. So it's not just a local benefit to the community that I live in and our neighboring communities, but the programming that they provide for educational opportunities for students, they take everywhere in the state. My kindergartner's school just had their program last night, and they were extremely excited about having them on campus to talk about STEM education and to really get the students excited for the learning and for focusing on math and medicine and a lot of great career opportunities that we know are available. So maybe I'll stop there and let my testifiers speak a little more to the ask.
Welcome, President Light, and please state your name for the record and go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Alyssa Light. I have the honor and privilege of being the relatively new president and CEO of the Bakken Museum. And thank you, committee, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Majority Leader Long. As Majority Leader described, the Bakken Museum builds on a rich history, both from our founder, Earl Bakken, as well as the state of Minnesota as really a beacon and incubator of innovation. Today, the museum's purpose is to awaken the innovator inside of each of us. We do that through community-centered STEM education and outreach programs in schools crisscrossing the state, interactive museum exhibits, a maker space, and an internationally recognized artifact and book collection. And I should also mention we also serve as a polling place. We're focused on designing inclusive and accessible programs and experiences that inspire engagement with STEM and innovation. And just to illustrate one example of that, what that looks like in the museum, our artifact and book collection includes a first edition Frankenstein that doesn't have author Mary Shelley's name on it. It's an amazing piece of history for people to see and imagine. But we don't stop there. We designed an immersive exhibit that illustrates Mary's story as a young teen girl in the early 1800s, writing about medical ethics and humanity. And then we invite you to consider the medical ethics of the story of Frankenstein, to dive into complexity and to learn about the fringe medical innovations of the time, and how that context might have inspired a teenage girl to write the story of Frankenstein. And then we take Earl Bakken off the pedestal and invite you to remember him as an 8-year-old tinkerer in his garage growing up in Columbia Heights, sneaking into the Heights Theater to watch Frankenstein for the first time at 8. My 8-year-old would not enjoy that. And it inspired him, and it's what he credits as really the root for his love of electricity and medicine, and ultimately his invention of the external pacemaker. But then beyond the story of Earl and Mary and Frankenstein, we design exhibits that highlight today's innovators, like Minnesotan Fatima Hussein's innovation on the sports hijab, the rapid advancement of 3D printing and prosthesis innovation, plant medicine, and environmental sustainability. The Bakken Museum is working in systems change, really looking to drive a future of innovation that not only better represents our diverse, intersectional, and brilliant communities, but in so doing helps to uplift the solutions we hold for the complex problems and tremendous opportunities we face as a society. And with that, I'd love to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Alex, to provide some additional context to our community outreach programming and our equity work.
Thank you. Go ahead and please state your name for the record and go ahead when you're ready, please.
My name is Alex Askew. I'm the Director of Development with the Bakken Museum. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Alyssa, and Majority Leader, and committee members. Equity is an institutional value that we address in every decision, whether it's centering relevant and diverse cultural references in our exhibitions, the development of multilingual exhibit panels, or ensuring that our museum spaces are accessible, both financially and physically, to all folks, My responsibility as the Director of Development is to raise diversified, contributed funding streams to center this value. Devotion of resources towards this initiative is a key component of our long-term strategic plan and is demanded of us by our mission and vision. The Bakken Museum has a track record of delivering high-impact, equity-driven exhibits and programming in our museum. We're also well known for reaching young folks in their own communities across the state, with education residencies and programming in over 150 public schools, libraries, and community centers. We've been from Rochester to Blaine, from Red Lake to Forest Lake, and Worthington to Wilmer, and beyond. In 2022, grappling still with pandemic restrictions, we were able to serve over 40,000 youth, families, and adults in 43 counties across the state of Minnesota. We know that 50% of the young people we serve are kids of color, and 51% qualify for free or reduced lunch. This allocation of funding will directly impact the delivery of our arts, cultural, and science-related programming, as well as exhibits and experiences within our own walls. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee, for allowing us the opportunity to speak on this important bill.
Thank you. We have some member questions. So Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lilly and Representative Long, for your bill. And I just wanted to take a second to say that I appreciate the Bakken very much. I think that it's one of our stranger museums, and I mean that in the best way possible. The Frankenstein's Monster Bicentennial exhibit was the first science or museum exhibit that my children sort of left truly impacted by and still talk about to these years later. It's one of the great exhibits. I know that you still have Frankenstein material and stuff that's up, and I just wanted to express my appreciation because we have a lot of museums in the city and we have a lot of interesting spaces, and this is one of my favorite of the more interesting ones. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just want to make a quick comment. We have quite a inventor here at the table, and he probably won't want to be recognized, but Representative Heitzman, if you ever have the opportunity to step onto his home property, he has quite a bit of technology. From his phone, he can control his sprinkler system and control his outdoor heat thing. But he's pretty darn advanced on, and he even has an e-bike, which he probably is going to not be happy I've told the world. He might lose some votes on that. So, thank you very much for coming, and love to hear about the work you're doing. And thank you, Majority Leader. Any final words that you'd like us to hear and to hear about your project, sir?
Oh, thank you, Chair Lilly. I think our testifiers did a great job of highlighting what a unique and special resource this is, not just for our city, but for the whole state.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming, and I know you'll be available for questions if we have some. So thank you. Chair Xiong? The clues. Are we doing his backpack? Yep. So welcome, Chair Xiong. Welcome back to Legacy. Thank you for your honorable service on this committee, and you are missed. But it took.
Is that right?
It took four Hmong members to take your place.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing my bill today.
Sorry, that was a joke. I've been wanting to say for a long time, but
it was for.
I don't know if it's funny or not, but it's meant to be funny.
Years.
Chair Xiong.
I'm sad that I'm no longer in this committee, but I know that all of my colleagues here from both sides of the aisle are doing great work, and so I'm happy to be here today to present House File 2352, which is a clues bill. I'm not going to say much because most of you know about the work that clues does, so I have 3 testifiers here today. To be efficient with our time, I'll give the mic to Ms. Ruby Lee.
Thank you, Chair Xiong. Please state your name for the record. Welcome back, and Go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, buenos dias. For the record, my name is Ruby Lee. I am president of CLUS, Comunidades, Latinas, Unidas, and Servicio. First of all, thank you, Representative Xiong, for carrying us again in supporting our efforts, and for the members of the committee also to have us this morning. CLUS is Minnesota's largest Latino and oldest led organization, founded 42 years ago. Our culturally tailored programs are designed to engage people holistically and multigenerationally in many ways. Our mission is focused on advancing social and economic equity and well-being for Latinos. Today's Minnesota's Latino community is the third largest demographic group in the state, with approximately 350,000 residents. Since 2000, Latinos in Minnesota constituted 26% or more than a quarter of the state's overall population growth. Throughout the United States, Latinos continue to drive the nation's population and economic growth. With offices in St. Paul, Minneapolis, Wilmer, and Austin, CLUS serves 30,000 people annually with the help of 140 team members and over 600 volunteers. I am here today to ask for your support of House File 2352, which will help us expand Latino arts that engage community and preserve and celebrate our cultural heritage. With your support, CLUS will be able to expand Latino arts programming that foster wellness, healing, and economic prosperity through the arts, preserve Latino heritage by cultivating Latino artists, professional development, and expression of individuals who themselves sometimes don't even consider themselves artists, but they are, and develop placemaking and cultural corridor initiatives that foster social and economic capital throughout the arts. Now I'd like to pass it on to my colleague and Director of Cultural Arts at CLUS.
Thank you, President Lee. Go ahead, please state your name for the record.
Yeah, buenos dias, good morning. My name is Hannah Novio Erickson, and I'm the Associate Director of Arts and Cultural Engagement at CLUS. We seek support for our arts and cultural engagement programming to expand Latino cultural experiences and community engagement initiatives that preserve and celebrate Latino cultural traditions. We've seen artists' professional careers skyrocket within and following our programming. And with strong roots embedded in uplifting our community, we hope to invite those who were once apprentices to now help us lead the way for the next generation of Latino artists. CLUS operates Minnesota's only Latino culture-centered arts gallery and provides the space, knowledge, and capacity for emerging artists to access broader community audiences. Currently on view, am I close enough? Currently on view in our CLUS St. Paul gallery, we have Creadoras Sanando, which means Women Creators Healing. This was an exhibition that was inaugurated for International Women's Day and is really focused on the importance of healing from generational trauma, as women are most often the culture bearers of our community, and stepping forward to be the next generation of culture bearers for our community. Coinciding with this exhibition, we've had a series of artist-led workshops, passing down that cultural knowledge to multi-generational groups of community members. Latinos face the starkest funding inequities for culturally tailored arts programming. Legislative support can help us address this gap, lift the voices of Latino artists, and provide access to high-quality artist and community-driven programming. It's been an honor to witness artists grow within our programs. I've seen community members go from at one point not feeling ownership of the identity of artist to building their confidence and now being full-time practicing artists that are leading multi-story murals within for community. Over the years, we've piloted programming in our greater Minnesota sites, and the community's response for each of these pilots has been beyond what we could have ever imagined. And now I'd like to turn it over to Alex Herrera, a fantastic muralist and community artist, to share a bit of his story.
Thank you. Go ahead, please state your name for the record, and go ahead when you're ready, please, sir.
My name is Alex Herrera, and I am an immigrant artist from Belize, Central America. And I'm here to testify about the importance of the CLUS community and the CLUS organization and their support for artists like myself. I was welcomed into the Clues community in 2019 when I was one of the artists in the Clues inaugural gallery opening in their St. Paul building. Since then, I have participated and been part of the Clues community as an artist, a student, teacher, and collaborator. Clues has opened many doors for me as well as connected me to the greater Latino artist community. Their support and guidance has been indispensable in my journey as an artist, where I have had mentors from all over Latin America, from Argentina to Mexico, Guatemala, and many other Latin American countries. Their connections have undoubtedly shaped the artist I am today, and it wouldn't have been possible for me to do the art that I'm creating today if it wasn't for Clues. Some of the pieces that I have created that I believe have caused an impact on our community as well as globally are a series of work I did for the Indian Prairie community called First Person Plural, which was a series of art that was created to honor the immigrants and their contributions to their communities. Another piece that you might have heard of was the George Floyd mural on 38th and Chicago here in Minneapolis. And if it wasn't for Clues, that work that I've created wouldn't have been possible, because Clues made it, open the doors for me to meet new artists and to make those connections so that I can have the strength and courage to go out and proceed and create this type of work. And I'm here to ask you to keep supporting Clues, because through them, your support, you support the kaleidoscope of ideas, culture, and beauty that the Latino artists bring to this beautiful state of Minnesota. So keep supporting Clues, and I appreciate everything you do, and as well as everything Clues does for the artist community here. Thank you.
Thank you. Love to see some of your art. President Lee.
If I may, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you may have a folder that we provided for all of you, so you can see some of CADEX's art. The main mural at the front. Oh. It's a mural, I don't know how many feet high, but it's a
14 by 25 feet.
14 by 25 feet mural that sits at the very entrance of our building. As you can see, the representation of the diversity of Latin American countries by their flag, with a young woman who really represents the bountiful experience. In the back, too, there's another mural, the one of workers and Latinos representing diversity of multi-generations was also another mural that CADEX presented, and so many others. So I just wanted to assure you that it's been the honor of our lives, too, to provide this opportunity at Clues, not only in the artistic way, but also in economic development. We're also working through our other programs to foster Latino artists as, they're owners of their own businesses, their own properties, and having the ability to, become part of the economic fabric of the country.
Thank you. Representative Finke. Yep.
Thank you, Chair Lilly and Representative Xiong, and I just want to thank you all for the work you do. I'm familiar with your work. It's amazing, and yeah, for me, this is why we're here. Whatever the question is, art is the answer, and so I'm grateful for what you're doing.
Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. I'm looking through your packet here, and I see the housing stability that you've helped out 4,524 families with $3.5 million to that investment, right? And we know as immigrant communities that housing is at the center of educational and health outcomes. And so I appreciate that you providing that information. I think continue to do the great work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Very much appreciate the work that you're doing, and I was just there the other night. Was having dinner across the street at a little Mexican place with the chair of Legacy Finance Committee in the Senate, and we were having a joint meeting at a little corner place right near you folks. But anyways, beautiful building at night, and you can see through the windows and see the wonderful art. Representative Xiong, any additional information before we move on that you'd like to share with us, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm a little disappointed you were in my district. You didn't invite me over dinner. But I will be very happy if you continue to fund this great institution so they can continue to do transformational work in the community. And thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And
Thank you very much. You want to stay here?
Representative Xiong, on to 30,000 feet. And it's
another great institution.
And we're
on the east side.
I want to thank our star staff, Mr. Molzon, for bringing some treats. So we have some donuts. I think we have some extras. So if there anybody in the crowd maybe wants some as well. And there's also some jalapeno chips for St. Patrick's Day. Representative Xiong.
Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Chair and members. This bill will appropriate $150,000 for a one-time funding to 30,000 feet, a 501c3 organization in my district that serves our East Metro. They've received state funding before. What the organization focuses on is advancing the economic success of African American youth through culturally responsive arts and tech education, social emotional learning, and history and culture. And without further ado, I have Ms. Vanessa Young here who will share with you more about this great institution and the impact that they have in the community.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Young, and so nice to see you again. And go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Lilly and Vice Chair Hussein, Madam Chair, and Representative Xiong for dedicating time for hearing our request today. Again, my name is Vanessa Young, the co-founder and operating as the Director of Programs at 30,000 Feet, AKA 30K, for those of you who don't want to say the whole entire thing. At 30K, which I'm one of them sometimes, at 30K we use the arts to increase academic achievement, build community relationships, and to invest in high-level programming and artists to conduct arts learning residencies for disenfranchised youth who wish to enter the arts field. Through our arts programming, we help redirect student despair and trauma that they experience by encouraging artistic expression to heal, rebuild community, and empathy among one another. Youth work with professionals to create art that inspires change. To ensure this programming is accessible, we provide transportation and have offered over 40 hybrid online and in-person art residencies with mathematics behind DJing, literacy in singing, songwriting, short stories, spoken word, and even geometry with mural painting and drawing, drumming and dance, and many more. With this funding, we look forward to bringing in breakdancers, sculpture artists, and theater artists to teach or enhance learning and to co-create with developing youth artists. We have served over 2,000 youth from low-income communities who don't have the means or access to programming such as ours. Since the start of our arts residency program in 2018, through a collaborative approach with various Twin Cities schools, libraries, community spaces, and now at our very own arts center on Arcade, which happens to be within a 5-mile radius of over 20 schools, rec centers, libraries, and other youth-driven entities. We are positioned to be another premier field trip destination to inspire change and improvements for us, all using art as our vehicle. With that, I'll yield for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I've been blessed to have an opportunity to visit your old space, and I know you have a new space, and I'm excited to get to see that. And I just love the work that you were doing, and I think that day you were doing some a DJ class, and it was just really amazing. It was the day that the kids were off school, and so they were there of their free will. Taking of a vacation day, and the energy was amazing, and I just really love the work that you do. Vice Chair Hussein.
Xiong, thanks for Jayshawn, Chair, for bringing this. I'm very familiar with the work that you do, Ms. Yang, and I got to know you many years ago. And thanks for working with those young kids in Eastside. I look forward, expanding that work and bringing some in the Frogtown and Midway and throughout St. Paul, because we need Kevin and you, the leadership that you have shown up for Eastside, for those young generations and building them, because I seen the work and I seen the reflect and I seen those young leadership that came out from your program for many years. Continue the work you're doing, and we appreciate it. And Jayshawn, Representative Jayshawn, thanks for bringing this one forward.
Thank you.
Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Director. I'm trying to figure out how, I'm so far out of my element right now, it's not even funny, but if the energy that you have, that you've exuded here, is put into, like I think what Representative Hussein said, leadership, good energy goes down, so everyone below you is like, they want to make sure that they keep your level. I think this is money well spent. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really true. We've been blessed, like I said, to get there, and thank you, Representative Xiong, for bringing this forward. Any additional information you'd like to give us before we move on, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Ms. Representative Scraba said it best. Money well spent.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Young, and
Thank you.
love your energy, and keep it going.
Absolutely.
You make us all better.
We'll do. We'll go 30,000 feet together.
I'll see you guys later. Thanks for everything.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I don't think all right, we'll do.
All right.
Chair Xiong, on to the Hmong Cultural Center, and please tell us about it when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, my next bill is House File 709. The Hmong Cultural Center, one of the oldest Hmong nonprofits in Minnesota, and within the last 4 years that I've been on this committee, they've came to seek legacy funds to continue with their programming for cultural and arts work in the community. And so, without further ado, I have Mr. Chongbo Lee here to testify, and I'll give my time to him so that he can share with you more about the organization and the impact that they have in the community.
Thank you, Chair Xiong. Welcome, Director Lee, and I saw you last night on I was watching the Senate, and you did a great job there, and go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Song Kao Lee. I'm the Executive Director at Hmong Cultural Center. Thank you, Chairman Lily, and thank you for the rest of the committee that allow me to testify today that the Hmong Cultural Center Museum has been established in just a few years, but the Cultural Center itself has established in 30 years already. So its time is flying. So today I'm here to talk about the Hmong Cultural Museum. The Hmong Cultural Museum is one of the community-based museum in St. Paul, Minnesota here. In terms of the United States, the Hmong population has been 300,000 Hmong live in the U.S. But Minnesota is the second state that has the Hmong population. It's 90,000 Hmong live in the state of Minnesota, and 1/3 of the API community live in Minnesota. The Hmong Cultural Museum is a place to educate Hmong community or non-Hmong community. In terms of, if we don't have the museum to passing our history and culture to the younger generation to come, and we don't have any place or we don't have a state that if we lost our culture and our history, we can go back and learn from. So I have been in the state of Minnesota for over 30 years, And us, 2022, we has been go around in the state of Minnesota, look around the community museum in South Minneapolis, and also in Duluth, St. Cloud, Mankato, look at their community museum. They have similar resource what we have. But the Hmong Cultural Center here, we were in the Little Mekong Frogtown district, which represent Hussein's district. So this is what I'm here today to asking to see. We can have some funding to support the museum itself. I have many Hmong individuals come into the Hmong Cultural Center Museum. They're asking me, is it we will relate to the Minnesota Historical Society? In 2015, they have shown that we are Hmong in the facility. But for a period of time, the show has been removed, and many Hmong, they're unable to find anything in the building. So they come to the Hmong Cultural Museum. They see what we have there. That's very important resource for many young Hmong and older Hmong coming throughout the U.S., East Coast, South, and West Coast coming to see what we have in the Cultural Museum. And at the Hmong Cultural Center 2022, we have 1,300 persons visit the Hmong Cultural Center Museum, including field trip from more than 50 schools coming to the Cultural Museum to learn. And we have over 100 Minneapolis teachers come in to visit and learn from what we have in the museum. And the only museum of its kind in Minnesota that the Hmong Cultural Center Museum has had a statewide an impact on an example of the February of 2023. We have 4 counties in the northern part of the state has come in and learned from the Cultural Museum what we have in there. And to sum up, if the project is fun, Minnesota residents will have great opportunity to learn about the Hmong history in Minnesota and the Hmong achievement in the state of Minnesota, and the Hmong culture have more generally information for people to learn from. So whatever, it will not stop. In September 2021, and vandalism at the Cultural Center Museum, it delayed to open. 2 months later, in December 2nd, we opened the museum. So this is what we will focus and provide more education to old and young to learn the Hmong history and culture through the Hmong Museum. So thank you for Representative Jay to introduce our bell to the floor here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And I love your facility. I've been over there a couple times, and I've unfortunately not been in your new space. And it's really quite impressive numbers that you just spoke of guests that, and all the students, of course, that's wonderful with the thinking that people are busing there and being exposed and learning. That's amazing. I'm not sure who was on the list first. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. Dòng siêu chào, trong director trong báo cáo tôi chỉ bên hôm nọ giờ họ chẳng chẳng được bên hai năm hôm nay. Thanks, Jay, for bringing this forward. You know the importance of our Hmong history here in Minnesota. Since 1975, we've been over here for 45 years, and I think the Hmong community has been a great asset to this community, especially here in St. Paul and especially in Representative Hussein's district. And we're grateful for Minnesota as a state to take us in. And the continuation of preservation of the Hmong history and culture is very important to us as Hmong Americans. because this is, like I said, the last stronghold for our history. You know, we have a rich history that expands over 5,000 years, which has been destroyed, stolen, burned, and non-existent. But we are a ancient people that have been around for over 5,000 years, and please continue to preserve that culture and what's left here in Minnesota. Thank you.
We are. Thank you.
Vice Chair Hussein.
Director Lee, it's nice seeing you again, and I'm happy to see you in these committees. I love your place, and I spend a lot of time in there, and I would recommend my colleagues and people to, you know, if you want to learn someone's culture, you show up where the knowledge and the experience is at. I have learned a lot, and I wanted to show up more, and we're here for you to help you, and thanks for bringing the rich history of my people of Hmong to my district. And the other day, me and my son was spending some time in there because we always looking to find some kind of historical places and learn. Because what I want to teach him when he grow up, I want him to learn on everybody in our Minnesota community, their cultural. So he won't be very disrespectful or say something harmful to other people that live within our Minnesota. Minnesota is not the way it used to be. It changed. It became a diverse, and that's what created a great nation in this United States is. And thanks for bringing. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful pictures out there in this museum. There's a lot of written and histories, and I love seeing those people that veterans also fight for United States and part of this nation. Thanks for, you know, putting together this beautiful museum. And Jay Sean, I'm kind of mad that you stole this one from me, but I'll let this time slide. All right, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question about, I think traditionally Hmong Museum and other nonprofits have gone through the Minnesota Humanities Center for grants, and I've heard complaints that oftentimes those grants aren't fully fulfilled or they're much smaller. Wondering if that's still happening, and also if I see the language here is 150,000 fiscal year 24-25, and I still think that's pretty small. So I guess I would like to see, I would like to give more if possible, and wanted to see what that could look like for you guys.
Director Lee.
Yes, that could be more. If we have more supporting from the community and from the state, we can open a wider space that we can accommodate more people come in and more diverse museum. What my goal is, I'm thinking not just only for the Hmong community, but in the Southeast Asian. As refugee, we flee from our country almost at the same time. So I want to integrate the Lao community and Mien community, Khmer community that we from Laos. And outside that will be Cambodian and Vietnamese. So that would be sometime in the future. We always will improve. From now to the future, we can trade that. So that would be something that might relate to, and that's what we want to expand. And one thing that we already expand, we have the travel exhibit that right now is located in Houston County in Minnesota. That for those communities, they don't have Hmong population living there. So we want to expand our service and history for other people who don't know who are the Hmong and where we come from. So they learn, they know who we are. So that's what we try to do our best.
Chair Vang.
Oh, and just the first part of my question is if going through the grants, traditionally you guys have gone through the Minnesota Humanities Centers, and perhaps Representative Xiong, you might be able to answer that question. If are Are there still issues with not getting the fulfilled grants coming from the Humanities Center?
Chair Xiong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Vang. I do have Dr. Mark Pfeiffer here who can share more. He has been corresponding with me the last 4 years about some of the challenges when the funds do go to the humanities versus appropriations, and so he can share more about this last round. I know that it is not just the Hmong Cultural Center, but several other organizations have had issues with receiving funding from humanities because of so many red tapes.
Welcome. And please state your name for the record and go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, Mark Pfeiffer, I'm Director of Programs at the Hmong Cultural Center. So yeah, we definitely, and I'm sure as many other organizations would prefer to get a direct appropriation. We got a grant in the second year on the last, we got the cultural identity grant after it was like the second year. So, but there was a long delay. I think there was a lot of staffing changes over at the Humanities Center. So we actually just got our contract a few months ago. So we only have like 5 months to carry out that full year grant in the second year of the program. So there have been a lot of issues with delays and staffing. So yeah, I mean, it would be much to our, we would definitely favor a direct appropriation.
So appreciate that, and I've received your letter that I think with the arts, the group's been really successful in getting multiple funds through the arts and then history and through cultural, the fund that we started on the cultural area, but I realize there's some growing pains and we're trying to get those better, and certainly I know my vice chair and others are committed to growing that fund greatly this year. So we really need to make sure that it's working and functioning vibrantly. Any final comments, or Chair Xiong?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that this issue, Representative Hassan and I, when we both sat in this committee, we've worked with you, and we've tried having a conversation with the humanities about it too, and I hope that we can continue having that conversation to ensure that great institutions like the Hmong Cultural Center and others continue to receive the funding that they have so that we can continue to preserve the rich history and culture in our state. And I also want to thank you and members for the opportunity, and also I noticed I have several new co-authors on the bill, and several are in this committee. I want to thank all of you for being co-authors of the bill too.
Thank you for coming, and Mr. Lee, it's always nice to see you, and again, I value the work that you've done in your space, and it's really important for Minnesota, so thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Xiong. Representative Finke. Welcome to your committee, and go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair Lilly and members. This is an appropriation for the Public Art St. Paul Triennial Art Festival. And I will turn it over to my testifier from Public Art St. Paul.
Thank you, Representative Finke. Go ahead when you're ready. Please state your name, and go ahead, please.
My name's Colleen Sheehy, and I'm Executive Director of Public Art St. Paul. May I say Happy St. Patty's Day?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I'm going to try to get down to the parade. But, thank you,
We're
Chair.
all Irish today, I think.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yay. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today. And thank you, Representative Finke, for representing us too. Public Art St. Paul is a private nonprofit that has worked in the city of St. Paul for 36 years. We've worked with dozens of partner organizations. We have a strong partnership with the City of St. Paul, and we work on a lot of projects in St. Paul parks with them. Two of our prominent projects that you may be familiar with, because this is the first time we're coming to the state directly to ask for an appropriation. Western Sculpture Park is nearby, just off Marion Street, near the Capitol. And the Sidewalk Poetry Program, if you've walked the sidewalks of St. Paul, you've probably come upon one of the poems that are stamped into the sidewalks. They're written by residents of St. Paul. We believe that artists are leaders whose work contributes in valuable ways to our civic lives, to bringing people together, to helping us to reflect, and to envisioning the positive futures that we can build together. All of these values and ways of working in collaboration are being mustered now by Public Art St. Paul and 35 partners for the first Wakpa Triennial Art Festival that will be presented this summer from June 24th to September 16th. And I'll just add that Wakpa means river in Dakota, and it is a distinctive name about our region that will continue on into the future. Audiences will experience new art by 30 to 50 artists, many presented in public spaces, some in galleries and museums at partner organizations. All will be free and will be welcoming to people of all ages. In addition to attracting audiences across the Twin Cities, we are working with satellite sites outside of the city proper, in Bloomington, Winona, Red Wing, Schaefer, Minnesota, and St. Anthony. Through promotions throughout Minnesota, people from across the state will be welcome to visit the Twin Cities and experience the art, people, and places of these cities and towns, a welcome opportunity to gather after the isolation of the years of the pandemic. The Wakpa Triennial will have a strong impact on the state of Minnesota, and it's a good investment for the legacy funds. By bringing people to places all across the metro and beyond, the Triennial will have an economic impact on our cities, neighborhoods, towns, and our state as a whole. We're promoting this new major art event with Visit St. Paul, Meet Minneapolis, Explore Minnesota, Star Tribune, and other outlets to attract people throughout the Midwest and even nationally to visit our state this summer. In other cities, these kinds of festivals become tourist destinations. The Triennial will provide jobs and support for 30 to 50 artists to create new work to advance their careers. By working with 35 organizational partners, we're also bringing new audiences to a whole network of arts organizations. So the Triennial is about much more than just Public Art St. Paul. Our budget relies on government funds for just 10% of our income, including funding from watershed districts. Our primary source of funds, about 70%, are private contributions from foundations, corporations, and individuals. Earned income through consulting brings in about 15% of our annual income. The Wakpa Triennial strives to help our communities recover from the last 3 years when the COVID pandemic brought isolation that we all felt. Through artists and the art they create, the performances that are presented, the conversations that will be hosted, the first Wakpa Triennial will demonstrate the creativity and strengths of our arts community and tell new stories about who we are and what kind of future we're building together. Thank you, and I'll now turn the mic to a collaborator and colleague, Sing Lee.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please introduce yourself. Go ahead when you're ready, please.
Hi, my name is Singh, and thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and for the opportunity to testify here. Again, thank you, Representative Finke, for introducing our request, and for Public Art St. Paul for having me here. My family and I arrived to this country in 1991. I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin. Through my journey as an artist, I ended up here in Minnesota. I received my Master's of Fine Arts from the Minneapolis College of Art Design. Minnesota has become my home. I've been a resident here for more than 11 years now. I have 2 children, 3 and 4, who love art, and I plan to continue making Minnesota my home because of this state's great support for the arts community and artists. I've built a relationship and have been working with Public Art St. Paul for over 5 years. They have been pivotal in my artist growth and career advancement, and not just for me, but for many people. For example, I've helped workshops for youth at the Western Sculpture Park that Public Art St. Paul does every year, which many were in art class, because this is the opportunity for a lot of people to have art classes outside of school and in nature. So we need places like Public Art St. Paul to keep the wonder, curiosity, and creativity alive and accessible. Artists do more, really, than just to create. We are contributors to the local economies. We teach people skills. Our communities are welcoming for all, no matter your race, gender, sexual orientation, abilities, or age. We keep cultures alive, creating spaces for people to create new or traditional crafts or sell or exhibit. We make space for critical ability to question culture through art. I feel confident that the Wakpa Triennial, hosted by Public Art St. Paul, will go a long way in supporting the state of Minnesota and the arts community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and we like when we can pick up great talent from Wisconsin. Oh, wow.
Both of you?
So we're very blessed by some of these additions to our state, so thank you. Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. I'm looking at the what you just said about how 7% of your funding comes from private organization and only 10% comes from public, and I think that's really great. You know, that you're seeking private funding and then just ask for 10% from the public fundings, and you know, I see all your partners on here, and it's impressive, and continue the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I just want to make a quick comment. I enjoy the sculpture pieces that I drive by often, and you know, it's amazing what just literally just driving by, it just lifts me up, and then imagine living in that space and having the sculptures there. It's just got to be uplifting for the folks to have that, and even like I said, even just driving by, it just gives me joy. Representative Finke, any additional information that you'd like us to have before we close here?
Thank you, Chair Lilly and members. I just want to say that there are many reasons that people make their home in the state of Minnesota, and one of the ones we talk about less at the Capitol is because we have a premier art community in this state, and an opportunity to support something like the Triennial Art Festival is something we should take. I said this earlier, but you know, whatever the question is, art is the answer. I truly believe that we can do everything through art, so I appreciate your support.
Thank you, guests, and very much appreciate your coming today.
Yes,
thank
thank
you,
you.
Representative Finke. Chair Vang. Thank
Oh, that's okay.
I really want to thank the folks that have, I think we're, little by little, we've caught up, so pretty impressive.
Chair, that's because Mike wouldn't let me ask any questions.
Did he give you the look? Welcome to your committee, Chair Vang, and go ahead when you're ready and please tell us what you're working on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill will allocate $250,000 per year, so $500,000 total to the Great Northern, which operates an annual winter festival in Minneapolis and St. Paul. The Great Northern was founded in 2017 in partnership with the City of Lakes Lopet U.S. Pond Hockey Championships and the St. Paul Winter Carnival as a way to enrich these landmark events with additional complementary expressions of the season. The Great Northern calls on many voices to share what winter culture means to them, in addition to celebrating celebrating the arts, the outdoors, and the strength of our food scene. The festival's programming also serves as a call to action to protect winter. We know that there are many ways into the climate conversation, and using the arts as a lens through which to bring the issue to the forefront is something the Great Northern does particularly well. The festival's goal is for its attendees from near and far to experience the beauty of winter on a cellular level and be inspired and motivated to preserve it for future generations. Now it's in its 7th year. The Great Northern is on a solid financial footing and is poised for growth. An investment from the state of Minnesota with these legacy funds would enable the festival to expand its programming, engage with world-class artists and experts, and shine an even brighter light on the winter culture in the North. And Mr. Chair, I will yield my time to my next testifier.
Thank you, Chair Vang. Welcome. Please introduce yourself. And
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lilly, Vice Chair Hussein, and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify before you today. My name is Kate Nordstrom. I'm the Executive and Artistic Director of the Great Northern. So the Great Northern, which Travel and Leisure recently called one of the world's top winter festivals, showcases this community at its wintry best to the rest of the world. This year, we attracted tens of thousands of attendees to more than 70 events that featured a unique combination of art, outdoor, and climate programming. We're poised to scale in a major way, bringing talent, tourism, economic opportunity, and a great return on investment. As Entrepreneur Magazine recently said, the Great Northern is a boon for business. Think of what South by Southwest has done for Austin. Our events attract a growing number of curious and adventurous people from Minnesota and beyond who are eager for fresh perspectives on deep winter. Whether it's an outdoor only in Minnesota dance performance, a robust climate series, or a sampling of more than 20 different sauna experiences. The Great Northern also makes Minnesota an easier place to attract and retain diverse talent. The top recruiting hurdle for local companies, which we hear time and again, is the negative perception of our winters. The Great Northern treats our cold and snow as assets rather than liabilities, and in doing so, we're changing the narrative about this place and our signature season. This year, nearly 140 national and regional media stories resulted in more than 1.1 billion earned media impressions, all telling a positive story of winter in the North. Since our founding in 2017, we've grown our budget to just under $1 million. During our 2023 festival, 20% of our income came through ticket sales and 80% was through charitable contributions. The Great Northern can be an example of the power and the potential of public and private partnerships with an investment from the state of Minnesota. We're seeking a legacy appropriation of $250,000 during each of the biennium to help us expand the breadth and depth of our climate-based arts, conversation, and outdoor programming. We'll cultivate robust partnerships, attract diverse talent, and increase access to positive experiences, positive winter experiences for all Minnesotans. The Great Northern celebrates all that the Legacy Amendment was ratified to protect, and we are coming to you for support at a crucial time of our organization's growth. This is our first time asking for support. I respectfully request to be included in the omnibus bill, and I want to thank the chair for this opportunity. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Nordstrom. Any member questions? Representative, sorry. Yeah, I just really want to thank you how you're leaning into, I know we're getting towards the end of winter, but I think it's really important that you do lean into it and provide opportunities for people to get out and enjoy it. It always strikes me as it must be horrible for folks that aren't able to get out and to enjoy and to find opportunities and to be locked in their homes and, maybe in front of a television set, which isn't horrible at times, but overall just not to be able to get out. It must be a very long winter. And so thank you for leaning into that and appreciate your work in this. Chair Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since it seems like you're looking for questions, so just wanted to ask maybe Chair Vang or the testifier. So in the language, you said that you have investing deeply in artists and new art And we heard from Chair Her earlier about, I think it was with the Historical Society, about how do you invest in the folks that are actually carrying out and doing the work. And so will this appropriation actually get into the artists that you're going to try to bring into the festival?
Definitely. Thank you for the question. Oh, sorry, Chair, and members of the committee. Apologies. Yes, absolutely. We will invest the funds that we get, the funds that we apply. You specifically mentioned art. To artist projects to execute and build a platform for great ideas. So I can give you an example of one really exceptional idea that came our way from an artistic team of Jovan Speller and Andy Doucette, who wanted to create a ice enclosed or a greenhouse that was enclosed in ice, nurturing black plant life. And they had this exceptional idea for mounting this in an alleyway in downtown St. Paul 2 years ago, and needed our support to help find partners and engineers, and the potential to like create this thing, make it possible, make their artistic dreams a reality. We take great audacious ideas from artists and work with them to realize and give a destination to members of our community, as well as those outside our community coming to the festival to see great artistic ideas executed. And we believe we have the staff and through support can make those great ideas a reality.
Chair Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Last follow-up. So can you tell us what kind of medium for the arts? Is it graphic artists, music, visual arts, or is it all encompassing for the Great Northern Festival? Thank you.
Ms. Nordstrom.
Chair Lilly and members of the committee, we are working with artists of all different disciplines. So we have a public art as a pillar of our festival. We also have music and performance as a pillar of our festival. So we have been commissioning music, we have been commissioning writing, we've been commissioning visual artwork, and so I would say no art form is out of limits. One of the reasons we include art in the Great Northern is because we know that the strength of our art scene is one of the things that makes our winters so great. It's a time of year to become invigorated by good words and great art that inspires. So we're looking to feed people inspiration, mind and body in deep winter. And so our arts commitment is real. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Shaw.
Fishing for questions, huh? So, thank you, Chair Lilly. This isn't necessarily directly just towards this bill, Samantha, Representative Samantha, and but as a member of this committee, when we get these requests, what I would like to see is more visual examples, than just text. And I'm looking for content, right? Because I'm a visual person. So it'd be nice that when we have organizations come to this committee, that we have maybe photos of those exhibition, or a web link or something like that, that we can have more visual context to about the programs. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Shaw. It's good advice. I'm very visual myself as well, and I had an opportunity to see an article and so I'd done some homework, and then I think I'd seen actually in the paper their sauna event or a news piece even or something, and so I was kind of familiar when I had an office visit with them. So that was helpful for me. I often struggle myself with some of the paperwork as far as just seeing. It'd be nice to respond to the pictures or certainly video. I was actually gonna, if it's all right, I'd like to ask you a quick question on the sauna, because I appreciate the art and all, and that I deeply value that, but I thought the sauna piece might be good for the members to hear, that how you lean into that, and there's is there like 20 different styles or there's like a bunch of different sauna? Anyways, maybe you can just kind of tell better.
Yeah, Chair Lilly, thank you for the question. Yes, this year we executed a very large-scale sauna village. We showed approximately 20 different sauna units from across the state and region, actually, with different types of steam opportunities for people. The audience or patrons who were there were able to do open steam events and go from sauna to sauna, interacting with different people who they didn't necessarily come with. But it was, I would say, an opportunity to show craftsmanship from this region and a cultural way of getting through winter. And so it was not only a wonderful way to kind of build community. It ran all through the festival, all 10 days. It was a very popular event, got a lot of coverage in the news, and we'll continue doing it. But I thought it was also a wonderful opportunity to show different types of craftsmanship in that field, and certainly as a regional specialty.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming, and appreciate the work that the festival folks that you're doing, that you put together. Any final comments or additional information that you'd like us to have, Chair Vang?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank the committee for an opportunity to hear this bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Hansen. Welcome to the Legacy Committee, and go ahead when you're ready and tell us what you're working on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. House File 2108 is for an appropriation to the Lawshe Memorial Museum Historical Preservation. Members, I don't know if you know that the Dakota County Museum in South St. Paul, South St. Paul is unique in many ways, but one of them is that we have had 3 former governors in a little town of 20,000 people from South St. Paul. And the County Historical Museum is there, and it had a new exhibit. And when I brought my father-in-law to the exhibit, and he is blind and 85 years old, and needs to use a cane to move, we got to the entrance of the museum, which was built in the 70s, and it still is a 1970s building. And it was almost impossible to get him in to see the art, to see the museum, to get in. And he was not alone. We have a lot of seniors in South St. Paul. And so what this is $275,000 to replace the entrance to the museum, so that the disabled and the elderly can participate. It is part of a larger need that we will be seeking bonding for, but this is something that we're looking at right now, and I have with me Dakota County Commissioner Joe Atkins, former member, to describe the project.
Thank you, Chair Hansen, and welcome, Commissioner Atkins. Welcome back to the legislature, and are you here to collect for double per diem, or what? No. Go ahead.
Am I still eligible, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner Atkins.
Chair, I thought I retired so that I wouldn't have to be in chairs like this on St. Patrick's Day, but here I am back with you, and I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate Representative Hansen, Chair Hansen, carrying the bill on our behalf. So I realized as I was sitting here, this was 75 years ago today, St. Patrick's Day, 1948. Immigrants from across places like East St. Paul and South St. Paul, West St. Paul, and North St. Paul, Mr. Chair, and veterans and laborers got together. It was the first full day of one of the most massive strikes in Minnesota history. My grandfather was there. It lasted 10 weeks. There were nightsticks and boots, and it was just a brutal exercise. And for those 10 weeks, they secured a 9-cent an hour raise. May not sound like much, but it meant a lot to my mom's family. and they also secured much better conditions in which they work in the stockyards in South St. Paul, the largest in the world. Stories like that continue to be preserved at the South St. Paul Dakota County Museum, but it's really hard to hear those stories and see those stories if you can't get in. So I appreciate Representative Hansen sharing this. This is actually a 5-to-1 return on your dollars. We've already started the efforts at the Dakota County Museum to replace and improve the elevators and the stairwells and all sorts of things that make it more accessible. We've made it much more inclusive, much more recognizing the diversity of our history in Dakota County. But it's really hard to tell those stories and have folks be able to experience those 25,000 artifacts, thousands of visitors a year, but very difficult if they can't get in. And to Representative Hansen's point, it was constructed, there was a ribbon cutting on December 30th of 1976. It was a bicentennial. So he's right. We're right almost at that 50-year mark, and very few improvements that have been afforded to the place since then. So with your help, we'd like to allow people like Representative Hansen's father-in-law and a whole host of other folks to be able to enter the museum seamlessly and enjoy those stories and learn from them. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Any questions from members? So I don't see any at this point, but any final additional words that you'd like to share, Chair Hansen? And
We'd appreciate your consideration if you'd like to visit and see for yourself. It's only, about 10 minutes away. Happy to give a tour. The new exhibits are amazing, and I know it. But I also saw people come to that entrance and go, how are we going to get in? So I'd encourage you to visit if you could. I'd ask for your support.
thank you, Chair Hansen, and nice to see you, Commissioner Atkins. I imagine with an Irish wife, you might be on the streets tonight.
This is a big day in our family. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Cha. Welcome to your committee, and we're excited to hear what you're working on, and we have lots of questions.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair Lilly. I'd like to move HF 2386 for possible inclusion.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead and tell us what you're working on, and
All right.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start this with my little story about how public libraries play an important role in my childhood and my education and as a young American. Growing up here in St. Paul in the 80s as a refugee student, a young American, we didn't have access to the internet in the 80s. And so a lot of our resources and learnings came from public libraries. On top of that, because of home insecurity and access to just, homework space, we rely heavily on public libraries to do our homework, and also a place and center for young second English learners to come together to study together as a group and a collective. This is really helpful because libraries provided that kind of space for us as English learners. And without libraries, we would not have that shelter, that safe space, and opportunity to learn. And my English wouldn't be where it was today. I would not be here sitting at this table. And so the public library has played that role for immigrant communities, especially API communities. And that's something I want to get across in presenting this bill. HF 236, Chair and members, is appropriation for $3 million each year for Minnesota's 12 regional public library system for arts and cultural heritage programming. Regional public library systems are great legacy partners because the 356 branch libraries enable free legacy programs to be available to residents throughout the entire state of Minnesota. Legacy funding is important to regional public library systems because Legacy programs in public libraries improve the quality of life for individuals and spark community engagement. Legacy programs provided by public libraries expand cultural awareness, develop a sense of history, and create connections between communities and local artists. Legacy program in public libraries support Minnesota artists, historians, authors, and highlight the rich historical and cultural stories of our state. There are many supporters of this proposal, which has been a mainstay in the legacy bill for many years. With me today is Amanda Xiong and St. Paul Public Library System to offer supporting testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Young, go ahead. Please state your name for the record and tell us the great work that the libraries are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Amanda Zhang. I am the branch manager at the Riverview Library in St. Paul, and I'm here to testify on HF 2386 for arts and cultural heritage funding for the 12 regional library system. Investing in arts and heritage means investing in the next generation. The library is the heart for some communities because it is the community center, the art center, and the historical center. To some, it is the only building that is free and open to the public. Libraries are responding to their communities and are creating meaningful programs requested by their communities. These funds provide libraries the opportunity to invest in intergenerational communities through programs from local authors, artists, presenters, and performers. Arts and cultural heritage funds are used to invest in long-lasting, impactful programs in St. Paul, which is part of the Metropolitan Library Service Agency, MELSA. First off, Rebrave. 2023 marks the 10th year of St. Paul Library's citywide intergenerational reading initiative that centers the Book of Power to ignite empathy and help us think of big ideas to move St. Paul forward. This year's theme is mental health, and today, Friday, March 17, marks the end of this year's program, which includes several events with Mayor Carter and conversations with Adi Karam, the author of Darius the Great is Not Okay, a panel of children's mental health, and a community cares event. Other impactful programs over the past years in St. Paul were Hispanic Heritage and Asian American Pacific Islanders AAPI Heritage Months. Both events brought local artists and presenters to library spaces to provide an opportunity for community members to learn, discover, and grow in those heritages. Because of those programs, staff who self-identified as Hispanic and AAPI felt encouraged and empowered to share their culture, history, and background experiences with their colleagues. We were able to invest in our communities and in our colleagues. Arts and cultural heritage funds reach communities members through libraries across the state. The Viking Library System in Fergus Falls, which has more limited funds to support programming, has used this funding to open a wealth of arts, cultural heritage, and history opportunities in their member libraries. The library system and Viking system sponsored 2 photography exhibits featuring the work of local photographers, reaching 9 of the 11 libraries in the region. In Fergus Falls, home of many visual artists and the location of the Lake Regional Arts Council and Springboard for the Arts, offered 20 hands-on art-making workshops with 17 local teaching artists. So in closing, thank you for giving me the time to testify on such an important and impactful bill for the 12 regional library systems in Minnesota. Libraries across our state are more than just a building with books. Libraries invest back into intergenerational communities with the help of arts and cultural heritage funds. They are the starting place for communities members to connect with resources, books, materials, arts, and cultural heritages. Through the support of all art and cultural heritage funds, libraries across the state have created legacies in our communities by investing, bridging, and making connections for community members that will have lifelong impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Very much appreciate the work that you're doing, and today's always it's Makes me think of former Rep Mary Murphy, Chair Murphy, when she was a member and brought the libraries on board into the legacy space, and it's really been a great addition to the legacy space, because I think the libraries have been good stewards of the funds all over the state. And, I've been lucky enough, again, I hate to keep going back to capital investment, but I've been in a lot of our state, and you get into some of these local libraries and you can see different impacts of what bonding's done, but also what like legacy funds have been able to do. And it's really quite powerful. And I know in my own county here in Ramsey County, a lot of the programming is funded by legacy funds in each of the libraries. But is there member questions? Chair Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you. I'm glad to see the Legacy Committee consider this library request to fund them, because as we've seen in last night, the Senate chose not to fund the $275 million in the bonding bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chair Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been saving it all up for this one bill. No, I just wanted to say thank you to Representative Chow for bringing this bill forward and to our libraries. I think I shared this story when they came in to see me, but as a young woman, refugee woman growing up in the 80s and 90s, we were not allowed to date. We couldn't go out. And so my grandfather's church was actually, the parsonage was just blocks from the library that you are at. And we used to walk after church to go get books, romance novels. So we couldn't date, but we could read other people's dating adventures in these books. And I always thought that maybe was just my generation and us needing to live a different world out of these books. But then my children grew up, and we spent all of our times at the library, because it was one of the only free resources that I could bring my children to when I was a stay-at-home mom and we were living on one income. And all of the YA books that they read were part of your Read Brave program. And I learned to love reading, because I didn't actually read as many of those romance novels as my sister and my aunt did, so I wasn't really into that. But the YA books were not just for my children, but they were for me. And we would have such a rich array of books to choose from that we read a lot of stories on African Americans, stories around some of the experiences they had in their authors. We were reading about Asian American stories, and it was just a way for us to really broaden our view of that when you don't have the ability to travel or to experience new communities, that you do that through the books that you read. And my children and my lives are better for it. And so I do, as Chair Vang just stated about funding libraries, that we forget the importance of that, especially for communities that do not have the resources or the access or the ability, actually. And so being able to walk to a library still, being able to access materials online, that all of the work that you all do is really critical in us having a rich understanding of each other. And so I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Herr. Representative Scraba.
Thank you. When we're all talking about the cultural heritage in Ely, Minnesota, the library came when the mine was started, and my grandparents came and they spoke no English, and they would send the kids to the library to learn English. It's the story just repeating itself over and over. So I understand, fully understand. And when it came time for Ely to invest in a new library or divest, because everybody said, the internet is the way to go. We don't need libraries anymore. They're not. And I can't tell you how much programming is done through the library to bring, I don't know if this funds one of the coding for kids. You ever hear, like they have a program for young girls, very young girls, to learn how to code. And as a mayor, I saw this every week. There was something, every 2 weeks was something the library was doing. So I understand what they do. I would offline here, I'll find out, because if there are 300, how many are? For $3 million, when you break it out and what happens, it seems like a big reach, but in the end, when you have, if you have the Arrowhead system, I'm assuming that's part of it too. Is this all of Minnesota? Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you.
So I'm assuming that all the librarians, which again are just a unique group of individuals in our state, librarians. We have a fantastic one in Ely, but it's like, you know, how these folks can make things happen in that library when it's supposed to be not happening because of the internet, you know, all this other stuff. But the library still is like one of the places where everyone still comes. Our rural area they come there all the time. So it is something that I've watched, but I had to agree with all your cultural stories. We've lived it, now you're living it. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to do that, and thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Scraba. That is one of the beauties of having this is that it is definitely statewide, and there's libraries in every, you know, almost every community, and I think it was captured by Ms. Xiong how the, you know, it's the community center, it's the, you know, obviously the library, but just so much more than just a library. Chair Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Cha, for bringing this important bill forward. Mr. Chair, I feel like, you know, being on the Legacy Committee, have really learned a lot from a lot of our colleagues, Representative Scraba, and to Representative Hurd's point about looking for romance novel. And so I would share, you know, for me, I remember very fondly growing up in North Minneapolis, the time that we'll go to the library was to get books so that we could participate in the reading programs. For every 5 books, you receive a little coupon to go to Target. Right. And that was really impactful. And also for us, you know, a very low income family, this is the only opportunity that we have for accessing magazines. And so I think, you know, oftentimes people may take some of these items, you know, for granted, but for a lot of us, we don't. And so I really just want to say thank you for the work that you do for, you know, your library and for all the libraries throughout the entire state of Minnesota. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you, Ms. Xiong. Oh, sorry. Representative. Oh,
Thank
great.
you. Thank you, Chair Lilly and Representative Cha, and to your testifier. And I just want to extend the same gratitude and let just, you know, I think it's really important for libraries not just to exist, but to be inclusive and affirmative spaces for everyone. And I would be remiss if I didn't state the value of libraries to young LGBTQ people. I myself have written a book for teenagers, a handbook for LGBTQ teenagers that the publisher and I worked really hard to get that book into libraries because libraries are just a space that some people can go to find materials that they wouldn't be able to find at home. And there has to be safety, and there has to be community, and there has to be welcoming, affirmative spaces. And libraries are a neutral arbiter of information and welcome. They are not a place to determine what information is available. So I wasn't going to do that, but I feel like I have to. So thank you very much, and keep funding the libraries.
Thank you, Representative Finke. I'm glad you did. Again, I hope that I hope all our libraries are reaching out to the Historical Society and getting a copy of the Legacy book and sending that home with all the kids, because it's a free book and they can go home to every kid in Minnesota. Little commercial there. But thank you, Ms. Xiong, for telling the story and advocating for all the libraries in Minnesota. It's a big task. You have big shoulders to take on that, but it's important work. And thank you, Representative Cha, for carrying this and your work on the libraries, and it's certainly valued by me and I know the rest of the committee here and certainly the state. So thank you. Any final words that you'd like to share with us?
Have we caught up in our minutes, Chair?
I think we're in good shape.
Okay. Then I might take a little bit longer in closing.
Whoops. No. Go ahead, sir.
First of all, I want to address Representative Lee. I know you left out some comments in your remarks, and the reason why you went to library was because of the ladies, right? But libraries are important, and I want to bring us back to a time when there wasn't the internet, right? And so there's like microfiche right? And there were like just books and magazines. And then we got into, a lot of us didn't have access to word processors, right? Remember that? When we had to typed up our assignments and stuff like that? There was a time when we didn't have access and we would go to the library to type up our homework because that was a requirement by the teachers. Then came the internet, and a lot of us didn't have access to computers, right? Because computers were expensive, and we all needed to learn how to use a computer. So a lot of us only had access to computers by going to the library, and we didn't have internet, right? We didn't know what the internet was. We didn't have access to 56K dial-up, AOL, you know, and we were able to do that by going to the libraries. And that's kind of like the role that libraries played in my generation in growing up, and part of my education came a lot from libraries. And when I say education, what does that mean? It's like when we talk about the American dream, you know, what is the American dream? Well, the American dream encompasses libraries, because that's where all the dreams are held up, is in the libraries. And it's through these libraries that I can dream about the careers I could have or the interests that I'm interested in, like architecture, photography. You know, when I was going to college for computer programming, and I didn't have access to books because computer programming books were like $120, right? And so learning Visual B, you know, Turbo C, and Visual Basic, Adobe, all these things, it was because of the libraries that I could check out, and that I had access to these programming books, you know, which really helped me in terms of that career that I had. You know, I love bookstores and I love libraries. I take my kids, my children to libraries. I still do. And so I am, you know, it's an honor for me to carry this bill. And back to what Representative Scraba said, you know, we're asking here for $3 million per year for 356 library. That's basically $8,426 across 356 libraries. That's a drop in the bucket for something that is so vital, and it's the fabric of our community and education, and you know, to our children and families. So just to give a context to that. You know, with that, I am so grateful that I don't have any late library fees. Because when they approached me, I thought maybe they were approaching me because of my fees over 30 years, right? But according to Representative Hurd, that library fees in St. Paul has been forgiven for those that didn't know that. So you don't have to worry about that. Return to your libraries. But thank you so much for Chair to this committee for hearing this bill, and hope for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cha, and thank you, Ms. Xiong, for coming. And just want to do another commercial. Make sure all your libraries are getting these books, and that was put together by this committee through the Historical Society, and it's available for all kids to bring home free. So thank you, Representative Cha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Agbaje. Thank you. I think you had some bills up in other committees, and thank you for joining us and making this work.
Yes.
And so go ahead when you're ready, and please tell us what you're, introduce yourself, and please tell us what you're working on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. Thank you for your patience today as I'm running around the Capitol building. Today I'm presenting House File 588. This is a bill that appropriates $125,000 in both years for programming for the Minnesota African American Heritage Museum. This museum is the only one in the state that is dedicated to Black history and heritage in Minnesota. This museum is a helpful space and place to celebrate Black culture and share stories that do not get told as often as they should in Minnesota. The museum also works with local schools to help supplement their teaching of Black history. And here with me today to provide some additional information is someone from the museum who can talk more about its founding and what they do. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself, and go ahead when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, representatives, committee members. Thank you for having me here today to present for the Minnesota African American Heritage Museum and Gallery. Just to give you a little bit of background, we opened September 8th, 2018. We are the only African American museum in the state. The mission is to preserve, document, and celebrate achievements and contributions and the experience of the African American in the Minnesota community. This mission is carried out through exhibitions, programs that educate and inform the public about the history, art, and culture of the African American in the state. We are a 501c3 organization registered in the state. The museum, for us, when we think an exciting destination for visitors to the state, attracting people from throughout the state, as we had a group of students from Victoria, Minnesota, the other day, from other countries. We've seen people from Australia, France, you name it, and other places in the country. We had a group of students schedule a trip to the museum, and they were from Montana. So we've attracted a lot of people from different destinations. The museum offers critical services of Black history, culture, art, and education. Black history is American history. The museum strives to elevate Black voices and that are oftentimes silenced. Since its opening, the museum has displayed nearly 20 exhibits. This year, we have just opened our latest, which is called Black Liberation. Another title might be Civil Rights in Minnesota, from the mid-1800s to the 1960s. We also have an art exhibit going right now, Community Quilt Project, where people from many different communities contributed to 14 quilts that are now hanging in the museum. We have a youth program for teens ages 14 to 18. This youth curator program is open to any teen in the metro area, and it introduces them to curating, research, writing, design, photography, visionary voice group, which is also a teen group, introduces them to public speaking, writing, spoken word. The museum has an adult artist in resident program, which provides financial support and development to artists, as well as a history fellowship program for adults. We conduct tours for schools, corporations, organizations, and we also have outreach to community events and festivals throughout the state. The funding is needed to continue with exhibits and programs, which include oral history project on COVID-19 and its impact on the Black community, continue our artist in residence and history fellowship program, develop a curriculum for K-8 in our Unbreakable exhibit. Our Unbreakable exhibit starts from 1800 and goes to 1950, and also continue and expand our youth program and general operations. The museum is not just a museum. We are a gathering place, and we wish that all of you in your time schedules have time to schedule some time to come and see us. It is important for others who are not African American to learn this history, because we are a part of the fabric of this state. And we hope that in doing so, we can all share the same values and respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invite. I hope we are able to get over and visit.
Thank you.
Any member questions? Seeing none at this point, I just have a quick question. Just wondering, we just kind of took a quick peek at like the grants. Have you applied for some of the grants through the Humanities or in past cycles? Because it doesn't appear that you received one, so that might be, so there might be a couple problems. One, you might not know about it, and then or that you didn't get it, or go ahead.
Sorry. Hearing aid is getting interference from the microphone, so.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear the question?
Feedback.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay.
Because we're, like, some of our people today, like the Somali Museum, the Hmong Museum.
Yes, we do get.
Hmong Cultural Center received some grants, and I just want to, I just want to see if, because it shows that you didn't get one, so I'm just curious.
Well, yes, we do get, we have received some grants from the Humanities Center, some city. They're specific to programming, and they're very helpful. We are just wanting to expand those programs because they have been successful and have brought us a lot of attention, but attention also financially is not always feasible. So.
Thank you. We just want to make sure that you know about it, and it sounds. Anyways, we want to make sure that you're getting funds.
Yeah, Chair, I think I can speak to that a little bit too. I think they've applied for certain grants. They may have received something recently, but I think they've also seen some funding from the city and some philanthropists in that. So.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lilly and Representative Agbaje for the bill and to your testifier. And yeah, so I mean, to the point, and I wanted to ask the same question that Representative Vang asked earlier when we had the Hmong Cultural Center Museum here, which also was asking for $125,000. And both of those numbers, they're probably the smallest numbers that we saw today. And I just want to make sure that you feel like you're getting what you need to do that work, because other organizations are indeed asking for significantly larger amounts of money. So it's important that we make sure that we're getting this money out equitably.
Thank you. Oh, I'm getting elbowed saying you need to go vote somewhere. So
yes.
Any final words that you'd like to share with us, Representative?
No, just
Agbaje?
thank you, Chair. Thank you to the committee. We've been in front of this committee before, and I hope it's really important that for all of the groups that are coming forward, I think many of them do find it a little bit difficult to find resources, and we're hopeful that the state can kind of help supplement what they are able to receive. And so I hope the committee will look kindly on this project, and we look forward to support. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Nice job, and thank you for coming
thank
today
you so
and
much for
waiting
having
so
me here.
patiently. Really appreciate that. And thank you, Representative Agbaje.
Thank you.
And oh. That's actually pretty funny. So, where are we at? Representative Kozlowski. As she's coming. Okay, you can set it in front, please.
Visualize exactly what Representative Cha asked.
Welcome, Representative Kozlowski. Go ahead when you're ready. Please tell us what you're working on.
All right. Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. Buju Ozawa Anakwad, Magazine Dodem, Nakajiwang, Masabakang Ndun Jaba. It's a good day to be here this Friday talking to you about House File 209, which is a museum and a cultural center up north in Park Rapids. I am here to talk about and request funding with my testifier here for Giwedanong, which is this museum and cultural center that will provide programming and educational efforts to teach the public really about the history and cultural heritage of Indigenous peoples in Minnesota. And on a week where we started the week in a good way with Sovereignty Day and talking about the treaty rights and the obligations that the state has, but as Minnesotans, folks might not know that you also have treaty rights and obligations. And so this King is a community-based organization from the White Earth Reservation, and they're doing regional work really to address the cultural and ecological sustainability for our region. And they have purchased the Carnegie Library in Park Rapids. And this will be converted into a new museum. And I'm very excited. In your packet, you should have letters from a broad range of tribal, public, private partners, business associations, business owners, schools, and many others who are very, very excited about what this organization has spoken into existence. And as somebody who's here Indigenous to the north as Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, I'm also Indigenous to the south and a proud Mexicano. And we know that whether it's Puerto Rico or, Mexico to Bemidji to Duluth to right here in the Twin Cities, that our indigeneity is connected, and we are all working to come home to ourselves and to each other and to the culture and to the land and to ourselves. And what I love about this project is that Giwedanong actually means homecoming in regreso a casa for us as Mexicanos. And if you think about really the experience of Indigenous peoples, as we've been talking about, growing up in our schools, and being invisible, if you go to a museum, we're talked about as relics and erased in so many different ways. So having a museum by Indigenous people, for Indigenous people, is really what we're here for. And one of the really powerful things about this is that it's actually going to be redeveloping and also regenerating our local economy, and helping us with what we call land back. So we say land back, but we're also talking about ceremony back and language back and culture back. And this space is actually already being activated by our Latino and our Indigenous, Afro-Latino and Afro-Indigenous communities. They're doing salsa dancing and Dia de los Muertos celebrations. And what more this is going to be able to become with the support and the investment from public and private and tribal, and now hopefully with the state. So with me today, I have my auntie, Winona LeDuc, who, as many of you may know, is an international Anishinaabe leader who is here from the White Earth region and working with many really to create and move this museum into existence.
Thank you, Representative. Ms. LeDuc, please state your name and go ahead when you're ready, please.
Okay. Anin Indaway Magadantuk, Benesi Indigenicas, Makwandodium, Gababani Cog, Ishkaniganing and Dunjabamigwich. I'm Winona LeDuc from the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota, Mississippi Band and Anishinaabe, and I'm here representing King, which is a community development initiative from the White Earth Reservation, a nonprofit organization which owns what was formerly a Carnegie Library. So here's our story. Andrew Carnegie made a lot of his money in the deep north. The 1837 and 1842 treaty territories, those were called miners' treaties. And the mining range in northern Minnesota is where Andrew Carnegie had the mining rights. In 1902, as the richest man in the world, he quit being a mining magnate and decided to make libraries. And so there are 2,500 Carnegie libraries in this country, and some of them are in disrepair. I think that you might know this, but I'm a child of a Carnegie library. I appreciated the testimony and the discussion earlier because I went to a library as a kid, and I still go to a library. And I believe in that space and that knowledge, and it is not something you can get from the internet. It is something that you get from a tactile experience. And so It hurt my feelings that the Park Rapids decided to not continue with that Carnegie Library, and they put the library in a more wheelchair accessible but not as cool building. And so in November or October of this last year, we purchased the library for the purpose of creating this museum. And it's a beautiful Carnegie Library. They all kind of look the same. But, you know, this is our opportunity to tell the story of a land and a people, because it is not told. This is a place where we can tell the story of the land of the 1855 treaty territory, which Park Rapids sits in the middle of. And so it's focused initially on the 1855 treaty territory. That's a land of, you know, at the time of the 1855 treaty, you could drink the water from every creek and river. There was wild rice in abundance. There was a buffalo herd that you could ride by for 3 days in a row and it would still be on the left side of you. It was a place where there was fish and our people were wealthy and happy. And at that time, actually, Minnesotans relied on us for food because we had the farming economy. We had the sugar and we had the rice. And that territory is still a beautiful territory. Someone needs to tell the story of the land and the people, the agreements, and the history that is there. Our people continue to harvest throughout that territory, our wild rice, our medicines, our maple syrup, our food and our fish. And I say that because in the time of the treaty, there were reservations made throughout that nobody even knows. Pokegama, where Grand Rapids is a reservation. Bacchus, the town of Bacchus, is in the middle of the Gull Lake Reservation. You know, the Rice Lake, the Rabbit Lake, Sandy Lake, those are all territories that continue to exist in Indian communities. So this story is what we want to tell, but we also want to tell the story of the people who continue to live there today and how we're not relics of the past, but we are people who live and continue our way of life in the 1855 treaty territory. It's really the most biodiverse region in Minnesota, and so, you know, we can continue our good way of life in that land. This offers us the opportunity to tell that story, but not just for us, but for the many citizens of the North. Minnesota requires some education on Native people and treaties, but there's really not a place to go to get that information. And time and time again, these school districts in the North are looking for a place to go, and this would be a place they could go. And so we are, you know, as well as the general public, Park Rapids is a tourist town. A lot of people come there, and over the many years, more and more people have come there. And there are some museums there, and as you see from the, you know, from the letters of support, not only do the tribal community support this, but also the business communities in the North support this, because we're going to bring new tourism opportunities, education, and happiness to Park Rapids. Part of that happiness is when we opened the museum, or when we purchased it. It was 2 days before November 1st, and so we had the first Dias de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead celebration in Park Rapids. It was awesome. We had a bunch of Mexican Americans come in from the neighborhood and from the cities, had a giant block party. Hundreds of people came, and I felt like everybody said, that's great, Park Rapids is getting cool. You know, and I want to be part of making Park Rapids cool, that I feel like we are. So we're asking you to support us. We've raised money from private sources. We purchased the building. You know, I know you guys can't help me with the elevator to make it ADA accessible, but, you know, there's expenses, capital expenses associated with it. The building's in good shape, but, you know, to make it serviceable, we're going to need to continue that work. But more than that, to actually make a viable museum where you have interactive displays, you can bring in kids and youth, and then the immensity of archival materials that exists on Native people is not gathered any place where Native people live. So our intention is to have archival materials that Indian people go to Washington, D.C. to go find. You know, where I have to come down here. My partner was at the History Center here. You know, but to have those materials there for scholars of all kinds to learn about the history and land of the North and the Anishinaabe people. So I'm happy to be here, really proud that you guys are looking at this bill in this museum. There's a picture of our sign for Giwade Nong. We put the sign up first just to let everybody know we're coming. And, you know, it has generated a lot of interest. And, you know, I'm happy and grateful that you're considering this. And I hope that you will give us an appropriation so that we can do good justice for the story that needs to be told. and make it something that Minnesota's proud of and we're all proud of. And that's all I want to say, except for Happy St. Patty's Day. So, good.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask a favor again. Can you say the name on the sign? Like
Giwedanong. Giwedanong. It means in the north, or it also means homecoming. Because Anishinaabe people, for us, the north is our home.
Thank you. I'm not gifted with pronouncing things.
We'll work on that. We'll help you with that.
I need help. So thank you for your understanding. But Representative Heitzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of comments, and I do also have some questions as well. You know, this is a bit of a more challenging discussion today. And Mr. Chair, the bill isn't being moved out of committee. We're just discussing the bills today, as I understand it.
That is correct. Representative Heitzman, everything today is kind of for possible and you know, inclusion in a bill that will move out of this committee. Yes, sir.
Well, if the bill had been officially moved for possible inclusion, I would have moved the table, and I'll explain why. You know, there's many things that we heard today in the description of this particular museum that I think most of us, as we're sitting here, would find very favorable. But there are a few other things that I think we need to discuss, and part of what the museum will house that wasn't discussed today, and that Ms. Leduc, you have mentioned in other newspaper articles and interviews, the museum will house both contemporary exhibits from Standing Rock, Line 3, and other water protector battles, as well as additional exhibits. And that's fine. But I think it's to the benefit to this committee and to those watching and for the public record that we talk a little bit about what Honor the Earth and those at this organization have been a part of over the last few years. And I'm trying to talk about this as respectfully as I can, but I think it's important for the public record, Mr. Chair. A number of years ago, as Line 3 was moving forward, Representative Lewick and myself were a part of the many conversations between local law enforcement and community members about the potential for demonstrations and what that has looked like in the past and what it might look like in going forward, as Honor the Earth has a reputation at participating at these events, and sometimes there have been examples of destruction of property and a number of other activities that are quote-unquote being described as protest that has put folks in danger. And I don't want anybody to be confused. This was a very stressful time for the folks in Aiken County and Crow Wing County during the replacement of Line 3. I think it's important that we discuss that today and at least bring some context to what is potentially going to be funded with taxpayer dollars. If folks want to do things on their own with donations, I fully appreciate that and respect that. But we are talking about taxpayer dollars. Now, getting to a question that I had for Representative Kozlowski. Is Representative Kozlowski aware of a civil lawsuit that's currently moving forward, and I believe going to be in court, jury trial, actually, the 27th of this month?
Representative Kozlowski.
Thank you, Chair and Representative Heinzman. The bill before us at hand has nothing to do with any court proceedings at all, and so it's irrelevant to the bill before us at hand.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Heitzman, and you know, I'm inclined to give you a lot of rope, but no.
I'll be careful, Mr. Chair.
Just be nice and
I will.
As you can.
I will, as best I can. And, you know, Mr. Chair, you and I have served on many committees here in the legislature, and we're always trying very hard to make sure that when taxpayer dollars are being spent, that we're making sure that the organizations involved are operating at the highest level, above reproach. And when there are these kinds of things happening, it is relevant, specifically when Honor the Earth and a former employee are making some very serious allegations. And I've worked to try and resolve this off the record, but we're having a discussion today, and so I am going to continue to discuss some of what I think is relevant and important to the decision whether or not this appropriation, because it's taxpayer dollars that are potentially being spent, how that would potentially be going forward if we don't discuss some of these things here in this committee today, okay? And I think that the taxpayers deserve that. All right, so I'm just going to read one paragraph, Mr. Chair. This is a public record. This is not something that's private information. And the committee can decide how to handle that.
Representative Heitzman, just, and I really mean this, if we can, you know, kind of keep it on the museum itself, and you probably are, and I just, you know, I don't know about all the lawsuits, and but I appreciate, you know, we could probably all benefit from, you know, reading some things too as well, if that's helpful. But go ahead, Representative Heitzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just one paragraph, and the committee can decide how they feel about the information. So and then we're talking about Honor Earth, the organization that is requesting $650,000, if I'm reading this correctly. A former employee, Molly Campbell, in this statement, in this civil suit that is moving forward and apparently in front of a jury on the 27th of this month, is suggesting that she was sexually harassed by a coworker at Honor the Earth. She has also learned that the coworker who did youth organizing at Honor the Earth has been credibly accused of using his status as a spiritual leader to commit sexual violence against Native boys. She was extremely disappointed when Honor the Earth failed to take these allegations seriously. Instead of acting promptly to protect the community from this predator, Honor the Earth tried to silence Campbell to protect the organization's reputation. I don't need to go any further, Mr. Chair. That's something I think that needs to be discussed on the record today.
I appreciate your concern. I've been blessed as a legislator to serve many years on Commerce Committee, and one of the advice you get early on when you're on Commerce Committee is to probably stay out of current court cases that are going on, you know, and that's not always easy for us as legislators, but Representative Heitzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the bill had been moved to be held over, or if it had been moving to another committee, I would have suggested that we had tabled the bill for a conversation offline. But that isn't the case today. And without any other opportunity, this is all I got as the minority to bring this up and make the public aware that this appropriation would be going to this particular organization, which is involved in some serious allegations, and then in addition to that, some verified and previous behavior that affected my community very dramatically. And so I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Heitzman. And I want to say that I appreciate I didn't know your concerns till yesterday after session, and you were honorable in the sense that you took me aside and brought some of this to my attention. And given how passionate you were yesterday, I think you've been really good this morning. So thank you.
Chair, if I could.
Representative Kozlowski.
Chair Lilly and Representative Heintzman, as somebody who has survived sexual violence, I would hope that not being privy to these conversations, that we would have taken more care to the folks in this room, to Indigenous peoples who face the highest rates of violence. and hence why there is so important to have visibility and to tell our own stories, because we are absolutely here and we are building for our future. So I just have to say that on the record as well, that I would expect more from my colleagues in this space to take care and tend to each other. I understand this conversation came forward. I would have liked to approach this in understanding and taking care of our community members. If there are proceedings, to take care of the folks who are viewing and following along. Now, to this bill does not grant in House File 2091 to honor the earth. It is to the organization King. And what we are doing here with this museum and with our community, as you said, to be crystal clear, that this was hard for our community. And the thing that I am so proud of our people and of who we are and who we are continuing to become is people who, when something bad happens and when pain happens, that we turn it into something beautiful. And so you are right. This was very hard. And pointing to the fact that the business community, our tribal communities, our indigenous communities, our Latino, our Native communities are coming together out of something that did cause pain all around. And we are trying to create something and strengthen our people for our future. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Representative Kozlowski. Representative Cha.
Thank you for the robust discussion. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. First of all, Representative Kozlowski, I want to acknowledge you in your journey for being here at the table. You know, I've heard your story many times before, and I'm proud to stand beside you in this 93rd legislation in this House with you. So I just want to say that to you. I think it's honorable in trying to preserve a landmark for the people in the community that encompasses donations for the late Carnegie. Libraries are important to a lot of us in many different ways. You know, as indigenous people of Asia, which is now known as China, I wish that I could have an opportunity to purchase a landmark in my native land to preserve my culture that has been forgotten and erased from the books. And so it's honorable that you have the opportunity to do so. And I would support what I can as a legislator into preserving cultures, experiences, to share and educate all that's inclusive in this Constitution, and to protect the rights of each and individual, regardless of religion, race, color, skin. And so thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cha. Chair Her.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. And I just wanted to bring us back to really what Representative Kozlowski's bill is about. And I'm not going to try to speak for her, but I will say that I think that this is such an important bill and why we should really consider this and we should fund it. You know, Andrew Carnegie, he believed that libraries were the best possible gift to a community and that it gave people the opportunity to improve themselves. And one of his quotes, he says, "A library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its people. It is a never-failing spring in the desert. There is not such a cradle of democracy upon the earth as the free library, the Republic of Letters, where neither rank, office, nor wealth receives the slightest consideration." I think that these are really powerful words, and I don't want to dismiss what Representative Heitzman is saying, because that is extremely valid, because anytime there is allegation of abuse, that we have to actually take that very seriously. But we can take that seriously and also take this seriously, and they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And that we can do right by people who are being hurt, but we can also do right by trying to correct the generations of harm we have caused to a community, that we have exploited so that all of us, we are all here benefiting from what has happened to our Indigenous communities, and that we have an obligation to support efforts to try to reclaim some of that back. And I think that it is a small amount. If we notice in her bill on lines 1.10, the bulk of this money actually goes to converting this Carnegie Library. And we as Minnesotans should preserve a building that is so special. The library that Ms. Xiong was here for talking about, that was a Carnegie Library as well. And we've invested in that. We should invest in Carnegie Libraries and keep those alive because they really are the heart of who we are. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of that the bulk of the money actually goes to this. And also just, a small amount goes to some of the cultural work. It's actually, King is getting a really small amount of this. And so we actually should be investing more into the actual work itself. But I really appreciate just preserving this and preserving Carnegie's vision of why libraries are so important. So thank you, Representative Kozlowski, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Chair Her. These libraries really are pretty amazing. There's one real close to here, the what is that? Freedom Library. I mean, it's right, and that's quite a treasure. Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lilly. I think that I want to start by saying that I am very saddened and angry that we I don't know what conversations were had before this, but unfounded or unproven allegations from a lawsuit that's unrelated to the bill that's being brought against an organization that is not receiving taxpayer dollars. I'm very disappointed that they were aired in this committee. I'm very disappointed that this was allowed. This was not germane. It is insulting, and obviously the other side of the aisle is doing what they need to do, but our side of the aisle, this is wrong. This was wrong. It was unrelated. It has nothing to do with the conversation that we're having here, and we should be ashamed that we allow that to happen to people who are here doing good work for a project that has nothing to do with that. Now we have this tagged on the record that this very, very worthy project somehow has anything to do with an organization not receiving taxpayer dollars, that's in a lawsuit that has not even started having its hearings. We need to do better by our members. I'm very upset that conversation could have happened whenever it happened. It has nothing to do with this bill. It's just absolutely infuriating. We can't just tag people with unrelated allegations because we want to. I know that was in your district, and you have every right to your feelings and being upset about it and whatever you want to feel about it, but that lawsuit is irrelevant to this. The people who were there, the water protectors, the work they were doing is valuable to the community project that's being put together here. It has every right to be included. I'm sorry. I want to apologize. I want to apologize that this turned into whatever this has turned into. Our side has to be better about this. So I do want to say thank you for your project. Thank you for coming to present this. Miigwech for your time. It's an honor to have you here with us. We are doing this with your time here. I'm embarrassed. I'm upset. I'm angry. This is wrong. And this is not what we should have been talking about when we wanted to talk about a fantastic project with some beautiful poetic justice, lots of good things happening here. And I'm excited that we have an opportunity to support this, and we really better fund this project now. We really better fund this project.
Thank you, Representative Finke. Like I mentioned, we did have a conversation. It was related to the conversation that I had was related to diverse opinions on some of the the pipeline stuff. I wasn't aware of the other stuff. That was a surprise, so I dealt with it as best I thought I could. I'm sorry I disappointed you, but you know, you do the best you can. And I think I'm really glad that we've had this opportunity to hear this bill and to have this discussion. And I think there is a place, you know, currently the Legacy does do some treaty work through the humanities. You know, the treaties, why treaties matter. But certainly this would be a nice addition to that work that we've been doing as a committee, you know, in that space. And I think I'm just going to go to closing comments from Representative Kozlowski and just and then if you're representative.
Mr. Chair, I would really appreciate an opportunity.
Representative Heitzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Herr, I want to thank you for your comments today. I think that you addressed and very articulately the concern of the minority here. And the way that I would suggest that this project move forward is to remove the organization. And Representative Finke, with all due respect, Representative Finke has left the room.
She.
Excuse me. Representative Finke has left the room. In line 1.14, honor the earth is mentioned. Okay? That wasn't something that I inserted into this conversation. And with all due respect, I feel that it's important that it was brought on the public record. And this discussion, Representative Herr, about how to do this, I think is an important one, and that's why I mention it. If this library can be separated and another group come alongside that isn't embroiled in these allegations and the other actions that have been very difficult in my community and in neighboring communities, that makes this whole discussion much, much easier. And Ms. Leduc is on the board of directors, to my knowledge, of this library, and that connection to honor the earth and to the personalities is what's creating the friction here. So I think that would be really helpful, Mr. Chair. It's just a suggestion, and it does sound like there is a desire to move forward, which I understand. But that would be my suggestion to try and save this museum and allow the outreach that I think that most Minnesotans really want and appreciate to continue to be available or to be available.
Thank you, Representative Heitzman. Just a comment from the chair. Our White Earth neighbors have been great partners of this committee. I know there's quite a few in the Lassard Sam space projects that are, restoring lands, tied to the Potlatch property that was acquired a few years ago. And I know that I was able to talk to the tribal president the other day, and they're doing great work. And I'm certain that we can, in this space, that we can also do some great work too. Representative Kozlowski, any additional comments that you'd like to share with the committee before we close? And thank you. I meant no harm as a chair of this committee, and I value discussions, from all of our neighbors and all of our projects that we've heard today. And it's hard when we get into litigation, and I know these issues are passionate. But again, my apologies from the committee to. But Representative Kozlowski, any final words that you'd like to share with us, please?
Chair Lilly, members of the committee, might I suggest that the next time, if out of respect, that you find yourself two white men having conversations about Indigenous people and not in good faith coming and bringing us into the conversation, That is how we get to stronger legislation and how we have done that in other committees. And so I would ask for that same respect back. Thank you, Representative Herr, for your comments. That is exactly it and what I was trying to articulate, that we can hold both at the same time. And I, as a person who believes and trusts victims and survivors, that is an imperative on us to do that. And it is also imperative on us as a state and as a body, as legislators, to also uphold our treaty rights and obligations. And in closing, I want to bring us back to the fact that this is an appropriation to the Minnesota Humanities Center. And this is redevelopment, reinvestment in our local communities and our economy, rehabbing of space to make it available for our community, for our region, and for our state to build for our future. And that is what I hope that you take away and we center on what it is we are trying to do for Minnesota. And I wanted to say, let's make Minnesota cool, but I will close in saying that we demand respect and justice, and let's make Minnesota just.
Thank you, Representative Kozlowski. Thank you, Ms. Leduc, and enjoyed our visit yesterday.
Miigwech. Thank you for your time.
So with that, thank you, committee members, for your being here this morning. And I, we've heard great projects all the way through, from the beginning to the very end, and we'll look at these projects, and most likely we can, figure out pathways for most or all of them. So, Representative Cha.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Lilly, for chairing this committee. I believe in your leadership and the work that you do, and I, as your committee member, support you. Thank you.
With that, and I value all of you too, and with that, we are adjourned.